My name is Elias Thorne. I am 72 years old and I am a carpenter. At my son's wedding, he took the microphone, looked me dead in the eye and announced to 200 guests that he was changing his last name. "I've always hated the name Thorne," he said while his new wife smirked. "I am ashamed to be his son." The room laughed. They laughed at me, the old black man in the cheap suit. But they didn't know the truth. They didn't know that 1 week earlier that same shameful name made me a multi-millionaire. This is the story of how I taught my son the true cost of disrespect. Before I continue this story, let me know what city you are watching from in the comments below. Hit like and subscribe if you have ever had to stand up to family who underestimated your worth and who forgot where they came from. My story doesn't start at the wedding. That was just the ending. It started 3 months earlier on a cold Tuesday morning in my kitchen in Brooklyn. My house. Not a mansion, just a 2-story brownstone I bought with my own hands 50 years ago. My son Marcus and his fiancée Ashley were sitting at my table. Ashley, who is white, always looks around my home like it's something she stepped in. She never touches the coffee I make. Marcus just stared at his phone. He always stares at his phone when she's about to do the talking. Ashley slid a glossy brochure across my wooden table. It stopped right on a water ring left by my wife's tea mug years ago, a ring I could never bring myself to polish out. "Elias," she said. She never calls me Dad. "We need to talk about your living situation." I just looked at her. My living situation. I've lived in this situation for half a century. "We found the perfect place," she said, tapping the brochure. It wasn't a brochure. It was a listing, a penthouse downtown. The kind of place with more windows than walls, full of glass and steel. The kind of place that looks cold even in the summer. "It's a huge opportunity, Elias, but the down payment is significant." I waited. I knew where this was going. I am 72, but I am not stupid. "And?" I asked. "And?" she said, leaning forward, "We need you to sell this house." The air left the room. I looked at Marcus, my only son. The boy I taught to ride a bike on this very street. The boy I carried on my shoulders. He was studying the grain of the wood on the table, utterly silent. "We need the capital, Elias," Ashley pushed on her voice, getting that sharp, impatient edge. "This place is way too much for you. All these stairs, the upkeep. You're 72 years old. It's time for you to downsize." Downsize. That's the word she used. Like my life, my memories are just clutter. Like the last 50 years can be folded up and put in a box. I looked up. Not at her, at the ceiling. There is a hairline crack in the plaster right above the sink. I remember the weekend Rose and I were supposed to fix it. It was the weekend before she went into the hospital. She looked at that crack and said, "It's not going anywhere, Elias. We'll get to it next week." We never got to it. This house isn't just wood and nails. It's the only place she still exists. Every scuff on the floor, every loose hinge. That's my history. That's our history. "No," I said. The word was quiet, but it landed on the table like a brick. Ashley's practiced smile twitched. What do you mean, no?" "I mean," I said, looking right at her, "no, the house is not for sale." Marcus finally looked up. His eyes were wide, panicked. He wasn't panicked because of me. He was panicked because of her. "Dad, just listen," he started. "No," I said again, my voice firmer. "This is my home." Ashley let out a sound. It was almost a laugh, but there was no humor in it. It was cold. "Selfish," she hissed. "You are being incredibly selfish." I just sipped my coffee. It had gone cold. "You would rather rattle around in this dump," she waved her hand around the room, "than see your own son get a start in life. We are talking about our future." "I gave your son," I said, my voice dangerously low, "his entire start in life." She stood up then. She saw she wasn't winning, so she went for the kill. "You know what? You're right. This house is too much for you." She picked up her $1,000 handbag. "You want us stuck in a tiny rental, fine, but don't come crying to us when you fall down those stairs." She turned to Marcus. "Let's go, honey. He's made his choice." Marcus stood up like a puppet, his chair scraping the floor. He wouldn't look at me. Dad, just think about it, he mumbled. She's right, Ashley snapped, pulling his arm. He doesn't need to think about it. He needs to be practical. She stopped at the door, one hand on the frame. She looked back at me, her eyes full of pity and disgust. Frankly, you shouldn't be living alone anyway. You should be in a nursing home. That's where you belong. And then they were gone. The front door clicked shut. I heard their expensive car start up and drive away. I was left alone in the silence. A nursing home. That's where you belong. The disrespect was so loud it was almost deafening, but it was Marcus's silence that hurt the most. He just sat there. He let her say it. He let her try to erase me. I put my coffee mug in the sink. I am not angry. I am calculating. This was the first move in a game I didn't know we were playing, but I'll be damned if I let them win. They left. The sound of the front door clicking shut was loud in the sudden silence. I stood there in the middle of my own living room, my hands resting on the worn fabric of Rose's old armchair. Ashley's words were still hanging in the air, sharp and sour like spoiled milk. A nursing home. That's where you belong. It was a cruel thing to say, but the part that cut the deepest was the silence that followed it. My son Marcus just sat there. He stared at the floor. He didn't defend me. He didn't even flinch. He just let her. He let her threaten his own father. He let her try to erase me from my own home. I looked at the coffee mug they hadn't touched. This house was too much for me, she said. This house where I had raised him. This house where I had held my wife's hand as she took her last breath. I was still standing there, my coffee long gone cold, when the phone rang. The sound was jarring, cutting through the heavy quiet. I looked at the caller ID, a 504 area code. New Orleans. I didn't know anyone in New Orleans. Not anymore. I almost let it ring. I didn't have the strength for another fight, another demand. But something made me pick it up. Hello? My voice sounded old even to me. Am I speaking with Mr. Elias Thorne? The voice on the other end was smooth, professional, and cold. It was the voice of a man who gets paid by the hour, a man who doesn't care about the news he's about to deliver. This is Elias Thorne, I said. Mr. Thorne, my name is Mr. Dubois. I am an attorney. I'm representing your brother, Julius Thorne. The name hit me like a physical blow. Julius, my older brother. My hands started to shake. Julius, is he okay? I knew the answer before I even asked. You don't have a lawyer call on behalf of a healthy man. I'm afraid not, Mr. Thorne, the lawyer said, his voice flat. Mr. Julius is in hospice care. He is declining rapidly. He is asking for you. He is asking for you. Those 4 words broke through the fog. Julius and I hadn't spoken in 10 years. Not since the fight. He was the brilliant one, the eccentric, the weird old man, as Marcus called him. Julius saw the world in numbers and patterns, not in people. I was the simple one, the carpenter, the one who led with his heart. He called me a fool. That was the last word he ever said to me. You are a fool, Elias, he had yelled over the phone, his voice crackling with a static that matched his anger. You are pouring your life into a bucket with no bottom. That boy will drain you dry. I had just given Marcus the last of my savings, $50,000, all of it, to save his groundbreaking tech startup that turned out to be nothing but a fancy website and a mountain of debt. He's my son Julius, I had yelled back, defending my choice, defending Marcus. And I'm your brother, he'd roared. And I am done watching you set yourself on fire to keep him warm. Then he hung up. 10 years of silence. 10 years of me telling myself I did the right thing, while a small part of me wondered if Julius was right. And now he was dying. And he was asking for me. I'll be there, I stammered. As soon as I can. I hung up the phone, my mind racing. I had to tell Marcus. Whatever our problems, whatever he had just done, this was family. This was his uncle. This was blood. He had to know. I dialed his number. It went to voicemail. I called again. On the 4th ring, he picked up, his voice annoyed, out of breath. What, Dad? I'm busy. We're trying to pick out silverware. Forget the silverware, I said, my voice thick. I just got a call from New Orleans. It's your Uncle Julius. He's dying. There was a long sigh on the other end, a heavy, impatient sigh. I heard Ashley's voice in the background, sharp and clear. Oh my God, what does he want now? Marcus came back on the line. Dad, are you kidding me right now? he said, his voice cold. Dying. He's been dying for 20 years. The man's a weirdo. He's in hospice, Marcus, I said, my voice rising. That's not dying. It's the end. This is it. You have to come with me. We have to go. Go, he scoffed. Go where New Orleans, Dad, our wedding is in 3 months. Next week is the tasting menu at the venue. We've had it booked for months. I can't just drop everything to go see some crazy old man I barely know. I couldn't breathe. He is your uncle, Marcus. He is my brother. He's your brother, Dad, he snapped. Not mine. He's done nothing for me. What's he got for me anyway, huh? Dust, old books, a broken-down house. The cruelty of it, the casual greed, it froze me. I don't have time for this, he said, his voice final. Ashley's waiting for me. We're done here. The line clicked. He hung up. He hung up on me. He hung up on his dying uncle. I stood there, the dial tone buzzing in my ear. The silence in the house was back, but it was different now. It wasn't empty. It was full. It was full of a cold, hard clarity. I was completely, totally on my own. I lowered the phone. I walked over to my laptop, my steps steady. My hands were not shaking anymore. I opened a travel website. I booked one flight to New Orleans, for one passenger, alone. The flight was long. My old bones are not made for sitting in a cramped economy seat for hours. The taxi ride from the New Orleans airport was worse. It took me deep into the Treme to a street I had not seen in a decade. Julius's house. It was exactly as I remembered, only more so. The paint, once a cheerful yellow, was now just a memory peeling off in long, sad strips. The front porch sagged on one side like a man who had given up. It was a house that looked as tired as I felt. I paid the driver and walked up the crumbling path. The door was unlocked. It was always unlocked. Julius never cared about what people might take. He only cared about what they left behind. The smell hit me first. Old paper dust, chicory coffee, and something else. Something sick and sweet. The smell of a body shutting down. Julius, I called out, my voice sounding strange in the high-ceilinged hallway. In here, fool, a voice whispered from the living room. I walked in. The room was dark, the shutters drawn tight against the Louisiana sun. Stacks of books and newspapers rose from the floor like unsteady towers, leaving only narrow paths between them. And in the middle of it all, a hospital bed. He was small. My brother, who had always seemed larger than life, was now just a skeleton under a thin white sheet. His skin was gray, stretched tight over his sharp cheekbones. But his eyes were the same. They were bright, and they were angry. So, he rasped, his lips barely moving. The fool finally came. I pulled up a rickety wooden chair, wincing as it scraped the floor. I sat beside him. I came as soon as I heard Julius. Liar, he whispered. You came because the lawyer called. But you're here. That's something. He coughed a dry, rattling sound that shook his whole body. It ended in a groan. I wanted to say something, to apologize for the 10 years, to explain. But he spoke first, his eyes locked on mine. You're still a fool, Elias. A goddamn fool. You gave that kid everything. My throat tightened. After 10 years of silence, this is what he says, the old argument, the wound that never closed. He's my son, Julius, I said, my voice thick. He's my blood. Julius let out a sound. It was meant to be a laugh, but it came out as a dry, rattling hiss. Blood don't mean nothing, he breathed. It just means you're related. It don't mean you're family. He turned his head on the pillow, wincing. He's a hole, Elias, a bottomless pit. He's got no spine, no character. He's just like his father. The words landed like a slap. Just like his father. Just like me. The man who spent his life working with his hands. The man Julius always thought was too simple, too soft. The man who poured his life into a son who was just another hole. You don't know him, I said, but the words were weak. I know exactly who he is, Julius snapped, and for a second his voice had its old strength. I've been watching him, Elias. I've been watching all of you. My blood ran cold. What do you mean? You think I'm just a crazy old man in a dying house? I see things. I read things. I know about that pale-faced girl he's marrying, the one who looks at you like you're dirt. He knew about Ashley. How? I know what they're planning, Elias. He continued, his voice dropping to a fierce whisper. I know they want your house. Rose's house. They're going to put you in a home, old man. They're going to throw you out like trash, and that boy, your son, he's going to stand there and let them do it." I could not breathe. He was saying my worst fears out loud. He was confirming the poison that Ashley had poured into my kitchen just days before. "Don't you let them, Elias," he hissed, his eyes burning into mine. "Don't you let them take her house. Don't you let them win." He was struggling, his breath coming in ragged gasps. But he was fighting. He was fighting for me. He fumbled under his pillow, his thin skeletal hand searching for something. He pulled out a small, old-fashioned skeleton key, the kind for a bank vault, a safe deposit box. He grabbed my hand. His skin was like hot paper. He pressed the key into my palm, his fingers gripping mine with a strength I did not think he had left. "Listen to me," he commanded, his voice urgent. "Dubois the lawyer, he's a good man, but he's a fool just like you. He only knows half the story. He thinks I'm a pauper. He'll read you a will. It's all lies." My mind was reeling. Lies. Julius what? "Don't trust the lawyer," he repeated, his grip tightening. "Don't trust the butterflies. Trust this." He squeezed my hand around the key. "The box. Local bank. Trust the box, Elias. Everything. Everything is in the box. Don't let them erase us. Promise me." I looked at the key in my hand, then at my brother's face, a mask of pain and fierce, desperate love. I promise, Julius, I promise." His grip loosened. A long, slow breath rattled out of him. His eyes, which had been so bright, suddenly went dull. The anger, the fire, it was just gone. "Julius," I whispered. His hand went limp in mine. I sat there in the dark, dusty room holding my brother's hand. He was gone. He was gone, and he had left me alone. But he did not leave me empty-handed. He left me with a key. He left me with a secret. And he left me with a fight. I am a man of my word. I made my promise. And 2 days later, I buried my brother. The funeral was a short, brutal affair under a heavy, wet Louisiana sky. The air was so thick you could wear it. It was just me, the lawyer, Mr. Dubois, and 2 bored-looking funeral home workers. 3 people. That was the sum total of Julius Thorne's life. 3 people standing over a plain pine box next to a hole in the ground. I had called Marcus, of course. I had to. I left him a voicemail. I told him the time, the place. "He's your Uncle Marcus. This is the last time. This is it." He never called back. But he did not have to. As I stood there listening to the funeral director rush through a generic prayer, my phone buzzed in my pocket. A notification. A new post from Ashley. My hand was shaking as I pulled it out. It was a picture. Her and Marcus, heads together, smiling at a table covered in tiny, elaborate pieces of cake. They were holding up 2 little silver spoons, each with a different flavor. The caption was bright and cheerful. "Choosing the most important flavor for our big day. So hard to decide. #blessed, #wedding planning, #future Mrs. Vanderbilt." They were tasting cake. While I was burying my brother, they were tasting cake. The bitterness rose in my throat so strong it was almost like bile. I looked at the picture, at my son's smiling, empty face. He was not just a fool. He was not just weak. He was hollow. There was nothing inside. I put the phone back in my pocket. I watched the workers lower the pine box into the ground. I was not just burying Julius. I was burying the last piece of hope I had for my son. Afterward, Mr. Dubois drove me back to his office. He was a small, neat man who seemed embarrassed by the whole situation. He clearly pitied me. "Mr. Thorne," he said, fumbling with a stack of papers in his stuffy office. "Again, my deepest condolences. Your brother, he was a very particular man." "He was Julius," I said, my voice flat. "He was who he was." He cleared his throat and put on a pair of reading glasses. "Yes, well, about the will." He pulled out a document. "It's not complex. As you know, Mr. Julius's means were modest." He began to read, his voice droning through the legal language. "I, Julius Thorne, being of sound mind and body," he skipped ahead. "To my only brother Elias Thorne, I leave my gratitude for his stubborn foolishness and my favorite reading lamp. May he finally see the light." A small final jab from beyond the grave. Even in death he had to call me a fool. "And all the rest," Dubois continued. "My entire estate, real and personal, including the house at 942 Esplanade Avenue and all its contents, is to be dissolved. The proceeds after legal fees are to be donated in their entirety to the Louisiana Butterfly Preservation Foundation." He finished reading and looked at me over his glasses, his face a mask of professional sympathy. "As I said, A particular man. I had to play the part. I had to be the man they all thought I was. The poor, stupid brother. I slumped in my chair, rubbing my face with my hands. I let out a long, slow sigh. "Well," I said, my voice heavy, "I am not surprised. Julius always did love his insects more than his family." Dubois nodded, satisfied. He had delivered the bad news, and I had taken it as expected. He stood up, eager to be done with me. "Again, my sympathies, Mr. Thorne, if there is nothing else." I stood up. "No, Mr. Dubois, thank you for your time." I shook his hand. My hand was steady. In my pocket, my fingers were wrapped tightly around the small, cold skeleton key. I did not go back to Julius's house. I could not. I went to a cheap motel and I sat on the lumpy bed staring at the key. I waited. I waited all afternoon. I waited all evening. I did not eat. I did not sleep. Julius said, "Trust the box." At 9 p.m. I could not wait any longer. I walked out into the warm, damp New Orleans night. The bank, the First Parish Bank, was downtown. The address for its 24-hour vault access was etched on the side of the key. I walked for 2 miles. The city was alive with music and light, but I saw none of it. I was a ghost. I found the building. It was an old marble fortress. I used the key at a small, discreet door which buzzed and clicked open. I was in a small, sterile room. A wall of metal boxes. I found the number, 3301. My hands were shaking again, but not from grief. From something else, anticipation. I slid the key in. It turned smoothly. I pulled the heavy metal box out and set it on the small counter. I lifted the lid. My heart was pounding. I was expecting something. Cash. Gold coins. Something that would change my life. But the box was not full of money. It was full of paper. On top, there was an old, thick, leather-bound ledger, the kind accountants used to use 100 years ago. It was worn, the corners soft. Underneath it, there was a single large piece of paper folded into a square. I opened it. It was not a treasure map. It was a map of New Orleans. But it was covered in Julius's sharp, precise handwriting. Dozens of properties were circled in red ink. Addresses, lot numbers, names. My eyes scanned the page, confused. What was this? I opened the first page of the ledger. It was not a journal. It was another will. My hands, my rough carpenter hands, were shaking. I set the folded map of New Orleans aside. I reached for the leather ledger. It was heavy, much heavier than an old notebook. It felt solid. It felt important. I opened the cover. It was not a journal. The first page was a document. My eyes scanned the top line, written in my brother's sharp, angry, unmistakable handwriting. "The last will and testament of Julius Thorne." I almost laughed out loud right there in the silence of the vault. Another will. "Julius, you magnificent, crazy bastard, you were playing a game." But this one was different from the typed, formal document Mr. Dubois had read. This was all handwritten. And at the bottom of the first page I saw it, a notary stamp pressed hard into the paper, 2 signatures. One was a name I did not know. The other was the hospice nurse who had been there when he died. And then I saw the date. It was dated just 1 month ago, long, long after the butterfly will. This was it. This was the real one. This was the box he told me to trust. The document Mr. Dubois had was a decoy, a final piece of theater from a man who loved his secrets, who loved chaos. I turned the page. My heart was pounding so hard I could feel it in my throat. The next page was not a will. It was a list, a catalog. It was the story of a life lived in complete secret. The heading said, "Real Estate Holdings." I expected to see his crumbling house listed and nothing else. But the list went on, and on, and on. 942 Esplanade Avenue, his house. Then 944 Esplanade Avenue, the house next door. 946 Esplanade Avenue, the entire block. My eyes scanned faster. Apartment building 500 Frenchman Street. Apartment building 1215 Royal Street. 5 buildings in the French Quarter. My mind could not make sense of it. I turned the page. Commercial properties. 400 Decatur Street. 712 Canal Street. I knew those addresses. I was just a carpenter from Brooklyn, but even I knew those addresses. They were not small buildings. They were prime historic commercial properties. I flipped the page again. Equities portfolio. A list of stocks so long it covered 3 pages. Blue chip stocks, tech stocks, companies I only read about in the newspaper, companies that built the modern world. Julius was not a pauper. Julius was not a crazy old man who loved insects. He was a silent investor, a real estate mogul. He had been quietly, methodically buying back pieces of the city that our family generations ago had once helped to build as free men before it was all taken away. He had been buying back our history. He had been buying back our name. I kept turning pages, my fingers numb, my mind unable to process the numbers. I felt dizzy. I had to sit down on the small metal stool. At the very back of the ledger on the last page, there was a summary, a final tally written in his precise, angry script. Total net worth $10,240,000. $10 million. I said the words in the silence of the vault, but they made no sound. 10 million. I stared at the number, trying to make it real. It was not real. It could not be real. Then I read the final paragraph. The paragraph that explained everything. The paragraph that would change my life. I leave all of it, he wrote, every last cent, every brick, every share, to my brother Elias Thorne. He is a fool, but he is my fool, and he is a good man. I leave it to him on one unbreakable, non-negotiable condition. My breath hitched. A condition. What condition? This inheritance in its entirety is for him and him alone. Not $1, not 1 cent, not one single share of this legacy shall ever pass into the hands of his ungrateful, parasitic son, Marcus Thorne, or that blood-sucking, pale-faced woman he intends to marry. He meant Ashley. He knew about Ashley. If Elias attempts to give them anything, the will continued, if he lets his foolish heart override his good sense, the entire fortune is to be immediately and irrevocably liquidated and donated to the Louisiana Butterfly Preservation Foundation. I am not kidding, Elias. Don't you dare be a fool. Not this time. I closed the book. The silence of the vault was absolute. $10 million. And a promise. A command. Julius had not just left me money. He had left me a weapon. He had left me a suit of armor. He had left me a test. I sat there on that cold metal stool for a long time. I thought about Marcus. I thought about Ashley. I thought about the words nursing home. I thought about them tasting cake while I buried my brother. A cold, hard feeling settled in my chest. It was not anger. It was not grief. It was resolve. I put the ledger and the map back into the box. I slid the box back into the wall. I locked it. I walked out of the bank vault, the key heavy in my pocket. I was no longer Elias Thorne, the poor carpenter. I was Elias Thorne, the executor of my brother's vengeance. I did not go back to the motel. I walked down Canal Street until I found the nicest hotel I could see. The kind of place with a man in a top hat out front. I walked right in. I booked the presidential suite. And the first thing I did, standing in a room bigger than my entire house, was pick up the phone. I did not call Mr. Dubois. I called the number for the biggest, meanest corporate law firm in the city of New Orleans. My name is Elias Thorne, I said, my voice steady and cold. I am in possession of a handwritten will for a $10 million estate, and I need it verified. Immediately. The voice on the other end stammered, suddenly alert. And one more thing, I said, looking out the window at the city lights. You will tell no one about this. Absolute silence. I have a wedding to attend. I checked out of the presidential suite, a room that cost more for one night than I used to make in a month. I changed out of the expensive robe and put my old clothes back on. The worn jeans, the faded flannel shirt, the scuffed work boots. They felt like a costume now, but a necessary one. The new sharp Elias Thorne, the $10 million man, stayed in New Orleans. The man flying back to New York was Elias Thorne, the poor carpenter. The test had one final stage. I needed to see with my own eyes just how far they would push. I needed to know beyond any doubt that I was doing the right thing. The flight back was different. I sat in a middle seat in coach, my knees jammed against the seat in front of me. The man next to me snored, but I was not the same man who flew down. On the flight to New Orleans, I was a ghost, a victim. Now I was a hunter. I was a king disguised as a pawn. I watched the clouds pass by and I thought about Julius. He had given me more than money. He had given me clarity. He had given me a purpose. I landed at JFK. The air in New York was cold, biting. It matched how I felt inside. I pulled my thin jacket tighter. I walked through the terminal, just another tired old man shuffling along. I found a quiet corner, pulled out my old flip phone, and dialed Marcus's number. This was it, the final chance, the final test. It rang, and rang. Then, "What, Dad?" "I'm busy." He sounded annoyed, out of breath. "Marcus," I said, making my voice sound weary, "I just landed at JFK from New Orleans. I'm tired, son. Can you come pick me up?" There was a long, heavy sigh. I could hear his impatience like a physical thing. "Dad, really? Now you could not have picked a worse time." I heard her voice in the background. "Ashley. What does he want now? Tell him no, we're late." Marcus cleared his throat. "Look, Dad, I cannot. I'm busy. Ashley and we have to go pick out the flowers for the wedding. It's a whole thing. We're already running late." "Flowers?" I said, my voice flat. "Right. Just take the bus, okay?" he said. His voice hurried, desperate to get me off the phone. "Take the Q70 to the train. You know the way." I heard Ashley again, her voice a sharp hiss. "Tell him to take the bus. It's cheaper. He needs to start saving our money." Marcus cleared his throat again, embarrassed but not enough to defy her. "Yeah, Dad, just take the bus. It's better to save the money anyway, right? We've got a lot of expenses coming up. I'll see you tomorrow at the ceremony. Okay, gotta go bye." He hung up. He did not ask about Julius. He did not ask about the funeral. He did not ask if I was okay. He told me to take the bus, to save their money. So I took the bus. I, Elias Thorne, a man with $10 million in his name, stood at the curb, my small worn bag at my feet. I waited for the Q70. I got on my joints aching. I sat on the hard plastic seat surrounded by other tired people. Then the subway. The F train. I held on to the cold metal pole, swaying with the rhythm of the tracks, a ghost in my own city. The ride took 2 hours. 2 hours to think. 2 hours to let the cold, hard resolve settle in my bones. Every stop, every jolt, every minute I spent being treated like nothing. It was just another nail in Marcus's coffin. I finally got to my street. It was dark now. The walk to my house felt long. I fumbled for my keys, my hands cold. I opened the door. The house was cold, colder than the street outside. It smelled stale of dust and of a life that was over. I dropped my bag by the door. I walked into the kitchen. I did not turn on the lights. I just stood there in the dark in the house Rose and I had built together, the house my son wanted to steal. On the kitchen table, a small pile of mail, junk, bills, and one letter, an official envelope from my bank. The one with my savings account. The one I still stupidly shared with Marcus. My heart did not pound. It just went still. I turned on the small kitchen light. I picked up the letter. My hands were perfectly steady. I tore it open. It was not a long letter. It was a formal notice. "Dear Mr. Thorne," it read, "we are writing to inform you of a recent transaction request on your joint savings account." My eyes scanned the page. A withdrawal request for the amount of $20,000 was initiated on... I looked at the date. It was the day I flew to New Orleans. The day I was sitting by my brother's deathbed. This request was initiated by the account co-owner, Mr. Marcus Thorne. I read the next line and a small, cold smile touched my lips. As this withdrawal exceeds the daily limit and requires dual signatures for amounts over $5,000, the transaction was denied. Please contact us if you wish to approve this transfer. He tried to empty my account. While I was burying my brother, he was trying to steal the last of my money, the $20,000 I had left in the world. He was not just weak. He was not just a fool. He was a thief. I slowly folded the letter. I placed it on the counter. I now had every piece of evidence I needed. The demand for my house, the disrespect, the abandonment, the cake tasting, the bus, and now this. Attempted theft. He was not my son. Not anymore. He was just a liability. And tomorrow at his wedding I was going to cut him loose. Tomorrow Elias Thorne, the poor carpenter, was going to die. And Elias Thorne, the executor of Julius's will, was going to be born. It is the night before the wedding. My house is silent. The bank letter sits on my kitchen table, a stark white rectangle in the dim light. It is a death certificate, not for a person, but for the last bit of hope I had for my son. He is a thief. He tried to steal from me while I was at my brother's side. The cold in the house is not just from the old windows. It is from me. I am no longer a father. I am a man with a task. My old flip phone buzzes on the counter. It makes a harsh, ugly sound. For a second, I think it might be him, Marcus, calling to apologize, calling to say the bank transfer was a terrible mistake, but it is not a call. It is a text notification. It is from my neighbor's daughter, a girl who is friends with one of Ashley's bridesmaids. I do not follow social media, but she sends me things sometimes. Pictures of cats, news about the neighborhood. I open the text. It is not a cat. It is a link. Just the link with a single message. OMG, Mr. Thorne, this is... Wow. Are you okay? My fingers feel thick and clumsy as I click the link. It opens a social media page, Ashley's page. It is public for the whole world to see, and there they are. My kitchen is dark and smells like old coffee. Their picture is bright, full of light and laughter. It is a professional photograph. They are at a restaurant, a place with crystal chandeliers and white tablecloths so white they almost hurt my eyes. Marcus is in a new tuxedo. Ashley is in a sparkling silver dress. They are surrounded by people. Ashley's mother and father, her brothers, her cousins, a dozen other white faces, all smiling, all raising champagne glasses. They are toasting. Marcus is grinning, his arm wrapped tightly around Ashley's waist. He looks happy. He looks like a man who has finally gotten everything he ever wanted. It is a beautiful picture of a loving family, and I am not in it. I scroll down. There are more pictures. Ashley laughing with her bridesmaids. Marcus and his new father-in-law, cigars in their hands. It is the rehearsal dinner, a formal, expensive, beautiful rehearsal dinner, and I was not invited. I, the father of the groom, was sitting on a bus from the airport. I was sitting in my cold kitchen discovering my son was a thief while he was here, laughing, celebrating. Then I see the caption, Ashley's words under the main photo. Celebrating with our true family tonight. True family. Spelled in capital letters so there could be no mistake. So blessed to be joining a family that has class and style and knows how to live. Can't wait for tomorrow. Future Mrs. Vanderbilt. New beginnings. #clean slate. True family. I am not true family. I am the man she told to go to a nursing home. The man she told to downsize. I am the dirt they are wiping away to get their clean slate. I look at the hashtag. #Vanderbilt. That is her last name. Not Thorne. Not my name. Not the name of my father or his father. They are not just starting a new life. They are erasing an old one. They are erasing me. My hand is shaking, but not with sadness. It is shaking with a rage so cold and quiet it feels like ice water in my veins. I have to hear it. I have to hear the lie from his own mouth. I pick up my phone. I dial his number. I have the bank letter in my other hand, squeezing it so hard the edges cut into my palm. He picks up on the fourth ring. Dad. His voice is loud, slurred. He is drunk. Behind him I can hear the party, music, laughter, the clinking of glasses. Dad, what's wrong? Is the house okay? He is worried about the asset, not the person. I just saw the pictures, Marcus, I say, my voice flat. The party. I did not know there was a party tonight. There is a sudden silence on his end. The music and laughter seem to fade like he has covered the phone. Oh, he says. Oh. Then I hear her. Ashley's voice, a sharp hiss in the background. Is that him? Oh my God, just hang up. He's ruining the mood. Tell him to go to bed. Marcus comes back on the line. He is stammering. Oh, that. It was just, a small thing. Just for Ashley's side of the family. A small thing, I repeat. It looked like 100 people. I saw her parents, her brothers. It looked nice. Yeah, well, he says, his voice gaining a hard defensive edge. He is sober enough to lie, but drunk enough to be bad at it. Ashley she just wanted it to be clean. There is that word again. Clean. Clean, I ask. What does that mean, Marcus, clean? He snaps his guilt, turning to anger. Just simple. Just her family. People who fit. It's not a big deal, Dad. God. Why do you have to make everything a big deal? People who fit. I, his father, do not fit. I am the old black man who does not fit in with their new clean white life. I see, I say, and I do. I see everything. It's fine, Dad. God, he says, sighing. It's fine. We'll see you tomorrow. At the ceremony. Just, be on time. And try to look sharp, okay? Ashley's parents are, I know. They are rich. I am not. I fit in the problem column. I understand, I say. Good. Okay. I gotta go, he says, relieved. They're cutting the cake. He hangs up. He leaves me in the silence of my cold, dark kitchen. He's going to cut the cake. I look at the phone in my hand. Then I look at the bank letter. Then I walk to my bedroom closet. I open the door. There it is, my one good suit. It is black, old-fashioned, but clean, pressed. The suit I wore to Rose's funeral. The suit I was planning to wear to my only son's wedding. I touch the sleeve. It is just cloth. It does not matter. None of it matters. They want a clean slate. They want to erase me. Tomorrow I will go to the wedding. I will be on time. I will look sharp. I will sit where they tell me to sit. I will smile. And I will give them exactly what they deserve. The game is set. The board is clear. And they have no idea that the old, stupid pawn they have been pushing aside is now a king. I walked into the hotel ballroom, and the warmth hit me like a wall. The place was dripping with money. Crystal chandeliers hung from the ceiling so low I felt I could reach up and touch them. Ice sculptures of swans melted slowly on tables covered in white roses. 200 people, mostly white, all dressed in expensive clothes, laughed and held glasses of champagne. The sound was a loud, high-pitched roar. I stood by the entrance for a moment in my suit. My only suit. The black wool suit I had owned for 20 years. The suit I wore to Rose's funeral. It was clean. It was pressed. But under these lights I could see how the fabric was worn thin at the elbows. I felt old. A young woman with a tight blonde bun and a headset saw me. She hurried over her smile, bright and completely false. It did not reach her eyes. "Can I help you?" she asked, her voice high and chirpy. She looked me up and down, just a quick glance, but it was enough. She saw the old suit. She saw the old man. She saw the black man who did not belong. "My name is Elias Thorne," I said, my voice quiet. "I am the father of the groom." Her smile froze for a second. Just a fraction of a second. She recovered, but I saw it. She looked down at her clipboard. Her perfectly manicured fingernail ran down the list. "Ah," she said, her voice changing. The fake warmth was gone, replaced by a cool, efficient politeness. "Yes, Mr. Thorne. Of course. Right this way." She did not lead me toward the center of the room where the music was playing. She led me around the room, past the laughing, happy tables, past the dance floor, past the towering 7-foot wedding cake. She led me all the way to the back to a corner so dark I almost tripped over a thick black cable snaking across the floor. "Here you are," she said with that same bright, false smile. "Table 23. I looked at the table. It was a small round table pressed up against a set of swinging silver doors. I did not need to ask. I knew where they led. To the kitchen. As if to prove my point, the doors swung open with a violent whoosh, and a waiter hurried out carrying a tray of dirty glasses. A blast of hot, greasy air hit me. I heard the crash of plates, the shouting of cooks. The doors swung shut. The table was set for one. Me. It had no flowers. No centerpiece. And right next to my head, positioned like a guard tower, was a massive black speaker. A deep electric thump, thump, thump was vibrating from it so low I could feel it in my chest. This was my seat. Table 23. In the dark. By the kitchen. Next to a speaker that was rattling my bones. I did not say anything. What was there to say? The message was as clear as the crystal chandeliers. This is where you belong. In the dark. Out of sight. The girl with the clipboard was already gone. I pulled out the single wobbly chair and I sat down. My back was to the entire wedding, and as I sat I heard them. The table next to mine. Table 22. It was close enough for me to hear every word. I recognized the voice. It was Ashley's mother, a woman with a hard face and diamonds on every finger. She was talking to another older woman. I know. Ashley's mother said, her voice a loud, careless whisper. "We tried so hard to get Marcus to make him stay home. We even offered to send him on a nice little vacation. The other woman gasped. You are kidding, his own father. Oh, please. Ashley's mother scoffed, and I heard her take a sip of wine. Look at him. It's just embarrassing. He does not fit. But Marcus, you know, he still has this leftover guilt. He insisted. Well, the other woman said, her voice conspiratorial. At least they put him over here, tucked away, where no one has to look at him. It's the perfect solution. Embarrassing. That was the word. Elias Thorne, was embarrassing. I sat up straight. I picked up the cheap cloth napkin. I unfolded it slowly. I placed it on my lap. I did not turn around. I did not look at them. I just sat. I did not touch the glass of water. A waiter rushed by and slammed a plate of chicken in front of me. I did not look at it. I did not eat. I just watched. I was not a guest. I was a spectator. I was a judge. I watched the room. I watched my son, Marcus. He was at the head table on a raised platform under a cascade of white flowers. He looked like a prince. His tuxedo was perfect. His face was flushed with wine and happiness. He was laughing his arm around Ashley. He looked rich. He looked successful. He looked clean. I watched them get up to dance. I watched them kiss for the cameras. I watched them go from table to table, shaking hands, hugging Ashley's family. And in all that time, for 2 whole hours, my son never looked my way. Not once. He knew exactly where I was. I could feel his awareness of me like a cold draft from the kitchen door. He was deliberately not looking. He was ashamed of me. And I felt nothing. The part of me that was a father, the part that would have felt a hot, burning sadness, that part was gone. It had died in my kitchen holding that bank letter. Now there was just a cold, clear, peaceful resolve. I knew what I had to do. The will was locked in a vault, a $10 million bomb. I just needed to wait for the right moment. The lights in the ballroom dimmed. The music faded. A man in a shiny purple suit stepped up to the microphone. All right, everybody, he shouted, his voice echoing from the speaker right next to my head. Are we having a good time? The crowd roared. Good, good. And now the moment we have all been waiting for, a very special speech. Please put your hands together and show some love for our groom, Marcus. The room exploded in applause. A spotlight hit the head table. Marcus stood up. He kissed Ashley, a long, deep kiss for the crowd. He straightened his tuxedo jacket. He looked confident. He looked powerful. He grabbed the microphone from the stand. He looked out at the 200 guests. His eyes scanned the room full of pride. And then his eyes found mine. In the dark corner, by the kitchen. He looked right at me. He did not smile. He just looked. And he lifted the microphone to his lips. He tapped the microphone. A sharp feedback screeched from the speaker next to my head, making me wince. Wow, okay. Marcus laughed, and the whole room laughed with him. He was charming. He was handsome in his new tuxedo. He looked like the man I had always hoped he would be. But I knew better. Thank you, thank you. He started, his voice smooth and confident. First, I just want to thank my new amazing family. He gestured to the head table to Ashley's parents. Al and Cynthia, thank you for welcoming me. Thank you for this. He waved his hand around the expensive ballroom. And thank you for showing me what a real family, what real class looks like. The crowd applauded. Ashley's mother, the woman who called me embarrassing, blew him a kiss. Ashley gazed up at him like he was a king. You have given me so much. Marcus continued, his voice thick with emotion. He was a good actor, I had to give him that. You've given me, Ashley, the love of my life. And you've given me a new beginning. He paused. He turned his head just slightly, and his eyes found mine again. He locked onto me, a laser beam in the dark corner. He held my gaze. There was no love there, no warmth, just a cold, hard decision. He was about to do it. He was about to deliver the final blow. And speaking of new beginnings, he said, his voice loud and clear, ringing through the entire ballroom, I have a little announcement to make, something Ashley and I are very excited about. He reached down and took her hand. As of today, I will be legally taking my wife's name. From now on, I am no longer Marcus Thorne. The room went utterly silent. You could hear the ice melting in the glasses, 200 people holding their breath. This was not normal. This was something else. This was a statement. From today on, he declared, his voice full of pride, I am Marcus Vanderbilt. A few people clapped, confused. Ashley's father started a slow, deliberate applause, but the silence was still heavy, and then Marcus broke it. He looked right at me, right at the man in the dark corner. "And I want to tell you why," he said, his voice dropping, becoming confessional. "It's because, to be honest," he paused for dramatic effect. He wanted everyone to listen. "To be honest, I have always hated the name Thorn." It was out. The words hung in the air, sharp and ugly. I felt them like a physical slap. Hated. The name of my father. The name of my brother Julius. The name of his grandfather, a man who had worked his fingers to the bone. Hated. It's just not me," he continued, a little self-deprecating laugh in his voice. "It's a name that means nothing." He was looking right at me, his eyes cold. "And if I am truly being honest, I have always been ashamed to be his son." His son. He did not even use my name, just him. The silence was broken, not by gasps, not by shock, but by laughter. A few of Ashley's cousins, drunk on champagne, started to snicker. Then Ashley herself let out a high, giddy laugh. She was so proud. She had won. She had taken my son, she had taken my house, and now she had taken my name. The laughter spread. Ashley's parents were laughing. The guests, seeing their cue, joined in. They were laughing at me, at the old, embarrassing father, the man from the past being erased by the new, clean Vanderbilt future. I did not move. I just sat there by the kitchen door, the heavy thump-thump of the speaker matching the pounding in my chest. But it was not pain, it was power. He had done it. He had done the one thing I did not think even he was cruel enough to do. He had publicly finally disowned me. He had freed me. The laughter died down. Marcus was smiling, basking in their approval. He was about to raise his glass, and I stood up, slowly. I was a 72-year-old man after all. My bones ached. I pushed my wobbly chair back. It scraped the floor, a loud, ugly sound in the sudden quiet. Every head in the room turned. The laughter stopped. The music stopped. Every single eye was on me. The spotlight that was on Marcus now caught me, the old man in the black suit rising from the shadows. Marcus froze. His smile faltered. He had not expected this. He had expected me to sit there and take it, to be the embarrassed old man and just disappear. I did not look at him. I did not look at Ashley. I did not look at anyone. I reached down. I picked up my cheap cloth napkin from my lap. I folded it. Slowly, deliberately, I placed it on the untouched plate of cold chicken. The silence was absolute. It was so quiet I could hear the hiss from the speaker next to my head. I adjusted my old suit jacket. I turned, and I began to walk. I did not walk to the head table to yell. I did not run out in shame. I walked. I walked out of the darkness of table 23. I walked past table 22, past Ashley's mother, whose mouth was hanging open. I walked onto the dance floor, my old work shoes clicking on the polished wood. I walked right through the middle of the room. I walked past the 7-foot cake. I walked past all the shocked, silent guests. I kept my head high. I looked at no one. I was the only thing moving in a room of 200 statues. I reached the grand entrance. I did not look back. I did not look at my son. I pushed open the heavy ballroom doors, and I walked out. I walked out of his life. I walked out of the humiliation, and I walked into my new $10 million future. I heard the doors whoosh shut behind me, cutting off the silence. No one, not a single person, and not my son, called my name. No one came after me. I was finally and completely free. I did not go home. I did not go back to my cold, empty house in Brooklyn. I walked out of that palace of a hotel, past the doorman who did not even look at me, and I hailed a cab. "Where to, Chief?" the driver asked. I thought for a second. I could go anywhere. For the first time in my life, I was completely untied. I had no son. I had no family. But I had $10 million. "Manhattan," I said. "The nicest hotel you know." He took me to the plaza, a place I had only ever seen in movies. I walked in still in my old worn suit from the funeral. The lobby was a sea of marble and gold. People stared. I did not care. I walked up to the front desk. "I need a room," I said. "The best one you have." The clerk, a young man in a perfect uniform, looked at me with polite disgust. "Sir, our presidential suite is $5,000 a night." He said it with a smirk. He was trying to make me leave. I reached into my pocket. I pulled out the new black credit card, the one my lawyers in New Orleans had overnighted to me, the one linked to the estate of Julius Thorne. I did not say a word. I just slid it across the marble counter. The clerk's eyes went wide. He looked at the card, then at me. His smirk vanished, replaced by a look of pure panic. "Yes, sir," he stammered. "Right away, sir. How many nights will Mr. Thorne be staying?" "I do not know yet," I said. "Just start with one." It is 2 o'clock in the morning. I am standing in a room so big it feels like an apartment. It is bigger than the entire first floor of my house in Brooklyn. A chandelier hangs over a bed that looks big enough for 5 people. Through the massive windows I can see the lights of Central Park. I am wearing a thick white $500 bathrobe. I am no longer Elias Thorne the carpenter. I am no longer the old man in the dark corner. I am no longer a victim. I am the man who just left his son's wedding. I am the man they tried to erase. I am the man who is about to erase them. I pick up the phone. It is heavy and gold. I dial the number. My lawyer in New Orleans. The sharp one. The one who understood everything, the one who worked all week to get Julius's real will authenticated, to get me access to the accounts, to get me this credit card. He told me to call him anytime, day or night, when I was ready. I am ready. He picks up on the second ring, his voice instantly awake and sharp. "Mr. Thorne." It is the first time anyone has called me that. Mr. Thorne. Not Elias, not Chief. It sounds good. It sounds like respect. "It is done," I say, my voice calm. I look out at the city lights. They look like jewels scattered on black velvet. It went exactly as we discussed. He did it. "The speech," the lawyer asks. "The speech," I confirm. "He disowned me, publicly, in front of 200 people. He took her name. He said he was ashamed of mine." There is a sharp intake of breath on the other end. "The fool," the lawyer whispers. "The goddamned fool. He just handed us the match." "Yes," I say. "He did. So now I want you to light it." "I am ready, Mr. Thorne," the lawyer says. His voice is a weapon. "The papers are filed. The accounts are flagged. The plan is in place. I just need your word." I think about my house. I think about Rose. I think about my brother Julius. I think about the bank letter, the one where Marcus tried to steal my last $20,000. "Do it," I say. "Activate everything." "Understood," the lawyer says. "We will proceed on all fronts. Where would you like us to begin, sir?" I close my eyes. I see Marcus's smiling, drunk face as he tells me to take the bus. I see Ashley's sneer as she says, "nursing home." I think about the $50,000 I gave him. The money from my savings. The money that Julius called me a fool for. The money that was supposed to be a gift, but that Julius, the magnificent bastard, had made me get a legal ironclad, fully enforceable loan document for. "Just in case, Elias," he had said. "A fool and his money are soon parted. Do not be a fool." "The loan, I say, my voice cold. "The $50,000 loan from 5 years ago. The one he never made a single payment on," the lawyer says, a note of satisfaction in his voice. "Yes, sir. The breach of family trust clause combined with the public humiliation gives us full standing to call it due, immediately, with all 5 years of compounded interest." "How much?" I ask. $72,400.31, the lawyer replies instantly. "Do it," I say. "Freeze his accounts, seize the funds, start with the debt." "The loan," I said, my voice cold. "The $50,000 loan from 5 years ago." I could almost hear the lawyer smile on the other end of the line. "Yes, sir," he said, his voice full of satisfaction. "The one he never made a single payment on. The breach of family trust clause as drafted by your brother is ironclad. The public humiliation at the wedding constitutes a complete violation. It makes the entire sum plus compounded interest due immediately." I stood there looking out at the city lights. I remembered that $50,000. It was almost all I had left besides the house. Marcus had come to me, his eyes wide with panic. He had started a business, a groundbreaking company that was going to sell T-shirts. T-shirts with clever sayings on them. Ashley, even back then, was at his side. She was the one pushing. She had convinced him that he was not a simple man, that he was a visionary, an entrepreneur. The business failed in 6 months. Of course it failed. It was not a business. It was a fantasy. But the debts were real. He came to me weeping. "I'm ruined, Dad," he cried, sitting right at my kitchen table. "They're going to take everything." What everything? He had nothing. He lived in a rented apartment I was already paying for. I was ready to give him the money. He was my son. I would have drained my account and given him my last dollar. But I made the mistake of mentioning it to Julius. The phone call with my brother was explosive. "You are a fool, Elias," he had roared. "You are not saving him. You are harming him. You are teaching him that his actions have no consequences." "He's my son, Julius," I yelled back. "He made a mistake." "Then let him fix it," Julius shouted. "If you give him that money, you are not his father. You are his accomplice. You are drowning him in weakness." I was torn. I told him I had to help. So Julius made me a deal. "Fine," he'd said, his voice dangerously calm. "You be the fool, but you be a fool with paperwork. I am sending my lawyer to your house. You will not give him a gift. You will give him a loan. You will have him sign a promissory note with interest, due on demand." I thought it was cruel, but I did it just to appease Julius. The lawyer came. He drew up the papers. They were cold and legal and full of clauses I did not understand. One of them was titled Breach of Good Faith. It stated that the loan was based on the foundation of a father-son relationship, and if that relationship was ever betrayed, the full amount was due. When I gave Marcus the check, I also gave him the papers. "It's just a formality, son," I'd said, ashamed, "for your Uncle Julius." Marcus did not even read them. He just signed his name, his eyes on the check. He grabbed it, kissed my cheek, and said, "I knew you'd come through, Dad. You're the best." He thought it was a gift. He thought it was a game. He never thought I would call it due. He never thought his crazy old uncle's formality was a loaded gun waiting in a drawer for 5 years, and I had forgotten about it, until I opened that vault, until I saw Julius's will, which specifically referenced the outstanding and ungrateful debt of my nephew Marcus. Julius had not forgotten. Julius never forgot. "What is the total?" I asked the lawyer, my voice steady. "With 5 years of compounded interest, Mr. Thorne," the lawyer said, and I could hear him typing. "The amount due as of this morning is $72,431.33. $72,000, more money than Marcus and Ashley had ever earned. It was, I knew almost the exact amount they had in their wedding fund, the money they were using for their new penthouse, the money they were using for their honeymoon. They were probably on a plane right now, flying to some expensive beach, drinking champagne, laughing about the old man in the dark corner. The demand has been sent electronically to his bank," the lawyer continued, his voice crisp. "We have also filed the lien. By the time the banks open in New York, his accounts will be frozen. By 9:30 a.m. they will be empty." "Good," I said. "That is the first step." "What is the second, sir?" the lawyer asked. I looked at the window at the reflection of the old man in the $5,000 hotel room, the old man they tried to put in a home. "The second step," I said, "is the house. My house." I woke up before the sun. In that $5,000 hotel room, sleep felt like a waste of time. It felt like burning money. I stood at the massive window wearing a bathrobe so thick and heavy it felt like a coat of armor. I watched the sky over Central Park turn from black to a bruised purple to a cold, hard gray. The city was waking up. My son Marcus and his new wife Ashley were probably already on a plane, flying first class, no doubt, to some white sand beach. They were probably drinking champagne, laughing about the speech, laughing about the old man they left behind in the dark. They had no idea. They had no idea that at 9:01 a.m. as the banks opened, their world was already ending. My lawyer in New Orleans was fast. The $72,000 lien hit their accounts like a lightning bolt. Their wedding money, their honeymoon fund, their penthouse deposit, it was all gone. Wiped clean. That was the first domino. Now it was time for the second, the one that would break them. I picked up the heavy gold-plated phone by the bed. I did not call my lawyer this time. I dialed a number in Brooklyn, a number I knew by heart. It rang 3 times, then a woman's voice answered, sleepy and cautious. "Hello? Mrs. Henderson," I said. There was a pause. "Elias," she said, her voice suddenly sharp and awake. "Elias Thorne. Oh, my lord, is that you?" Her voice was full of a worry so genuine it almost buckled my knees. Elias, are you all right? My goodness, I heard. My daughter saw the pictures from the wedding. I was so worried. Are you okay, honey? The kindness in her voice. After all the poison and the scorn this simple human kindness felt. Strange. It felt like a warm hand on a frozen heart. I am fine, Martha, I said. My voice was rough. I am more than fine. I am calling to ask you a question. A business proposition. A business proposition? She repeated, confused. Elias, it's 7 o'clock in the morning. What on earth are you talking about? I looked out the window at the morning light hitting the tops of the buildings. I am calling Martha to ask if you would like to buy my house. The silence on the other end was absolute. I heard her take a sharp breath. Buy your house, she finally stammered. Elias, what do you mean, did they... She did not have to finish the sentence. Did they finally kick you out? No, I said, my voice cold. I am selling it, by choice. Elias, she said, and her voice was just sad, practical. Honey, I cannot buy your house. You know what has happened to this neighborhood. All these new people, the ones like the ones who like penthouses. They've driven the prices so high. A house like yours on this block? Elias, it must be worth almost $2 million. She laughed a dry, sad laugh. I am a retired nurse. I live on my pension. I can barely afford the rent on my own little apartment. I cannot buy your house. I know. I knew exactly what she had, and I knew what she gave. I closed my eyes. The 5-star hotel room vanished. I was back in my own bedroom in Brooklyn, 2 years ago. The smell of sickness. I saw my wife Rose lying in our bed. She was so thin, so pale. Her hand was lying on the quilt, and I saw another hand. A dark, strong, kind hand holding hers. It was Martha Henderson's hand. She sat there hour after hour, wiping Rose's forehead with a cool cloth, reading her stories from the newspaper, telling her the neighborhood gossip. She was there when I was too weak to be. Where was Marcus? He was slammed. He had a big project. He was launching a new brand. The truth. He was ashamed. He could not stand to see his mother that way. He came for 5 minutes, stood in the doorway, kissed her on the forehead, and left. He could not handle the reality of it. But Martha stayed. She was there the night Rose passed. She was the one holding Rose's other hand while I held mine. She was the one who cried with me. She was family in a way my own son had forgotten how to be. Elias, Martha asked, her voice soft, pulling me back to the hotel room. Are you still there? I opened my eyes. I looked at the rich, empty room. Yes, Martha, I am here. I cleared my throat. You are right. The price, it is too high. It's okay, honey, So I am making you a new offer, I interrupted. My voice was steady. It was clear. I will sell you the house, the entire brownstone, the keys, the deed, everything. Elias, I just told you I do not have the money. You do, I said. I will sell it to you, Martha, for $1. I heard her drop the phone. I heard a clatter, then a gasp. Martha, are you there? I heard her fumbling, picking it back up. Elias, she whispered, and her voice was trembling. That is not a funny joke. That is cruel. Why would you say that? It is not a joke, I said. I looked at my own reflection in the dark glass of the window, the old man in the fancy bathrobe. I am not laughing, Martha. I am leaving. I am not coming back to that house. But I cannot let them have it. I cannot let them tear it down or sell it or fill it with their cold, empty lives. But why me? She whispered. Because, I said, and my voice was thick, I need it to belong to someone who understands what a home is. I need it to belong to someone who will take care of Rose's garden. I need it to belong to someone who loved her. I paused. I need it to belong to someone worthy. And Martha, you are the only one left. I hung up the phone. I left Martha Henderson sitting in her small rental apartment, probably in shock. She was crying when I said $1, but I told her, Martha, be ready. This is not a joke. Someone will be there in 1 hour. I did not waste a second. I picked up the heavy gold phone again and dialed my lawyer in New Orleans, the Shark. It is Elias, I said. I need a name. The best, fastest, most ruthless real estate attorney in New York City. I need him now. My lawyer did not pause. He gave me a name, a big one, a man whose name was on the side of a building in Midtown. I called him directly. "This is Elias Thorne," I said. I used my new voice, the one that sounded like $10 million. "I am the executor of the Julius Thorne estate. I am in Manhattan. I need a deed of gift drawn up immediately. I am gifting a brownstone in Brooklyn valued at approximately $2 million to a private citizen. The transfer must be absolute ironclad and filed with the city by noon today." There was a sharp, impressed silence on the other end. This man, this expensive lawyer, was calculating. He smelled the money. "Mr. Thorne," he said, his voice suddenly smooth as silk, "a transfer of this magnitude, it requires careful due diligence. It requires speed." I cut him off. "The recipient is Mrs. Martha Henderson. She is waiting at her apartment. You will go to her, you will bring the papers, and you will include one non-negotiable clause. Do you have a pen?" I laid it out for him. The clause that my New Orleans lawyer had already helped me draft. The Thorne-Vanderbilt exclusion clause. A legal fortress. The lawyer in New York let out a low whistle. "That is aggressive, Mr. Thorne. It could be challenged." "It will not be," I said, "because you are the best, and you will make it stick. Do this for me by noon, and your fee will be doubled. Fail me, and I will find someone who can." I hung up. I did not need to wait for his answer. Men like that are motivated by two things, money and a challenge. I had just given him both. I sat back in the plush armchair. I imagined the scene. The expensive lawyer in his $1,000 suit arriving in his black town car. He probably thought he was going to a nice apartment. Instead, he climbs the stairs to Martha's little 3-room rental, the one above the laundromat. He knocks. She opens the door, probably still in her bathrobe, her eyes red from crying. She is terrified. He steps in, looks around her tiny, clean apartment, and opens his briefcase. "Mrs. Henderson," he says, his voice probably echoing in that small room. "My name is David Barrett. I represent Elias Thorne." He lays the papers on her small kitchen table. "This," he says, "is a deed of gift." He explains it. He explains that I am in effect giving her my home. She is probably crying, saying she cannot accept. But the lawyer is not there for her feelings. He is there for a signature. "The price," he explains, "is $1, which my client has already paid on your behalf. This is a legally binding transfer of title." And then he gets to the real reason he is there. He points to paragraph 7. "And this, Mrs. Henderson, is the most important part. You must understand it before you sign." He explains the iron clause. He explains that by accepting this gift, she agrees in perpetuity that the property at 417 Maple Street, Brooklyn can never be sold, transferred, willed, or otherwise conveyed to Marcus Thorne. Marcus Vanderbilt Ashley Thorne, or Ashley Vanderbilt. It cannot be given to any children they may have. It cannot be used as collateral on any loan they are part of. It cannot in any way, shape, or form ever benefit them. If she tries, the deed becomes void and the property is immediately seized by the Julius Thorne Heritage Fund. He made it a fortress, a legal wall built around Rose's garden to keep the barbarians out. Forever. Martha probably looked at him confused. "But why?" "Mr. Thorne is a very specific man," the lawyer would say. "Do you agree to these terms?" And I know she did. She would sign to protect me. She would sign to protect Rose's memory. She would sign her hand, shaking on the line. At 11:30 a.m., my Gold Hotel phone rang. It was the lawyer. "Mr. Thorne," he said, "it is done. The deed is signed, witnessed, and filed. The house is no longer in your name. Mrs. Henderson is the sole legal owner. Congratulations." I hung up. I stood. I walked to the window. I looked down at the city. The house was gone. My last anchor. My last tie to my old life. It was cut. I did not feel sad. I did not feel angry. I felt light. I had taken the thing they wanted most, the thing they had humiliated me for, the thing they had tried to steal, and I had given it away. I had turned their greed into a gift for a good woman. And at that exact moment, somewhere over the Atlantic Ocean, 30,000 feet in the air, Marcus and Ashley were clinking champagne glasses. They were flying to the Maldives. They were planning their new life, spending my money in their heads. They had no idea. They had no idea that they were not flying to their new life. They were flying away from their old one. They had no idea that when they landed, they would have no money, no credit, and no home to come back to. They were, in every sense of the word, completely and totally homeless. I did not stay in New York. There was nothing left for me there. The old Elias Thorne, the carpenter, the father, he died in that ballroom. The man who checked out of the Plaza Hotel was someone new. He was Mr. Thorne. I bought a new suit, a dark, simple, expensive one. I did not fly coach. I flew first class. I did not go back to my house because it was not my house anymore, it was Martha's. I flew back to New Orleans. I did not fly back to grieve. I flew back to build. I did not go to Julius's old crumbling house. I went to one of the addresses from his ledger, a dusty, empty 3-story building in the warehouse district. It had a for lease sign in the window that was 10 years old. It was mine. I had the locks changed. I had the power turned on. I had furniture delivered. Not a bed. Just a large, dark mahogany desk and one good leather chair. This was not a home. This was an office. This was my new headquarters. From this office, I started my new life. I was not a carpenter. I was an operator. I was the head of a $10 million estate. And I had one burning question. It was the last piece of the puzzle. It was the one thing that still stung me more than the theft, more than the humiliation. It was my son's voice ringing in that ballroom. I have always hated the name Thorne. I am ashamed to be his son. Ashamed. Why ashamed of what? Ashamed of a poor carpenter. Ashamed of a name he knew nothing about. I realized sitting there at my new desk that I knew nothing about it either. It was just a name, the name of my father and his father. I had been so busy working my whole life I had never stopped to look back. I picked up the phone. I did not call my lawyers. I called the history department at Tulane University. I called the Historical Society. I used my new money, the power of the Thorne estate, and I hired a team. Not of bankers, but of historians, genealogists, researchers. I gave them one simple task. Find out who we are, I said. Find out what Thorne means. I want to know everything. They worked for a week. While they dug through archives and dusty census records, I worked on my own. I set up the legal framework. I created the shell corporation that would soon become the Thorne Heritage Fund. I was building the machine, but I did not know what it was for. Not yet. Then the historians called me. They asked for a meeting. Mr. Thorne, the lead professor, said, his voice trembling with excitement, "You need to see this." They came to my new office. They unrolled old yellowed maps on my new desk. They laid out census records from 1870, from 1880. "We thought," the professor said, "like you did, that Thorne was probably a name given to your ancestors, a name from a slave owner. We were wrong, completely, totally wrong." He pointed to a name on the 1870 census, a man listed as Solomon Thorne, and next to his name, his profession, blacksmith, and next to that, freedman, a free man. "He was a former slave, yes," the professor said, "but he was freed before the war. He was a master craftsman, a blacksmith of incredible skill, and we found his specialty in an old city ledger." He laid down another book. "He was known as Solomon the Smith, and he specialized in forging thorns." I looked at him confused. "Thorns? Metal thorns?" The professor said, his finger tracing an old drawing of a wrought iron fence. "Sharp metal spikes for the tops of fences and gates to keep intruders out. The wealthy planters, they loved his work. It was his signature. They did not call him Solomon the Smith. They called him Thorne, Solomon Thorne." My heart was pounding. A blacksmith, a craftsman, a man who built things with his hands, just like me. "But that," the professor said, his voice dropping, "is not the most amazing part." He pointed to the census record again. In 1870, this man, this freedman blacksmith, he started to buy land. He saved his money and he bought his first piece of land right here. He tapped the old map. I looked at the address. I stopped breathing. I knew that address. I reached into my new expensive briefcase. I pulled out the map from Julius's vault, the map that was covered in my brother's sharp red ink. I unrolled it. I placed it next to the historian's map. They were the same. The address the professor was pointing to was the first address circled on Julius's map. The professor stared. "My God," he whispered. "Where did you get this?" I did not answer. I just traced the lines from one map to the other, the properties Solomon Thorne bought with his blacksmith money, the properties he lost one by one after Reconstruction, when the laws changed, when the night riders came, when a black man's success became a target. It was all there. A story of rise and a story of fall. And then I looked at Julius's map. My brother. My crazy, silent, brilliant brother. He had not just been buying random real estate. He was not just an investor. He was a redeemer. He had spent his entire quiet, lonely life buying it all back, every single piece. He had spent 50 years in secret, piece by piece, buying back the stolen legacy of Solomon Thorne. This was not just money. This was not just revenge. This was history. This was our name. My son, in his ignorance, spat on the grave of a king who had forged thorns with his bare hands, a king named Thorne. And I knew in that moment what I had to do. This was not my money. This was Solomon's. And it was time to bring his name back into the light. They sat in their rented luxury car, parked right in front of the glass doors of their new penthouse. The engine was off. The silence in the car was heavy, broken only by the sound of Ashley's angry breathing. The moving truck was parked behind them, the driver standing by the cab, arms crossed, waiting to be paid. "What do you mean, declined?" Ashley hissed, her voice a low, dangerous whisper. She was staring at her phone, at her bank app. "He ran it twice, Marcus. He said insufficient funds. How can there be insufficient funds? The wedding gifts alone were over $30,000. Marcus was rubbing his temples. He was tired from the 20-hour flight. He was tan, but he looked stressed. "I do not know, Ash. Maybe the transfer from the wedding account hasn't cleared. These banks, they're slow." "Slow," she snapped. "We're paying these movers $400 an hour. I am not sitting in this car like some homeless person. Call the bank, now." Marcus sighed. He pulled out his own phone. He hated these calls. He dialed the number for their private bank, the one Ashley had insisted they join. He put it on speaker. A polite recorded voice answered. "Thank you for calling Premier Trust. Your call is very important to us." Yeah, Marcus muttered. He stabbed the keypad. 0, representative. Finally, a live person. A woman with a crisp, cold, professional voice. "Thank you for calling Premier Trust. This is Cynthia. To whom am I speaking?" Ashley leaned in. "This is Ashley Vanderbilt. My card was just declined, and that is impossible. There is over $70,000 in our accounts. Fix it." Her voice was pure command. She was used to getting what she wanted. There was a pause, the sound of polite typing. "Mrs. Vanderbilt," the bank rep said, her voice unchanged. "I do see the decline, and I see the issue. May I please speak to the primary account holder, Mr. Marcus?" "Thorne." Ashley's face tightened. "It is Vanderbilt. We just got married, and it is a joint account." "I understand, madam," Cynthia said, her voice still perfectly annoyingly calm. "But for a security matter of this nature, I must speak to Mr. Marcus." Marcus sighed and snatched the phone. "This is Marcus. Look, what is the problem? We're trying to pay our movers. Just unlock the card." "Mr. Thorne or Vanderbilt, is it?" the rep asked. "Just Vanderbilt, yes. That is my name now. What is the problem?" "The problem, sir," she said, "is not your card. The problem is your account balance. Your accounts, both checking and savings, have been frozen by a legal directive." The color drained from Marcus's face. "Frozen? What do you mean frozen? Like a fraud alert?" "No, sir," Cynthia said. "Not fraud. Your accounts have been frozen in response to a court-ordered debt collection. A lien was placed against all your assets this morning. As of 9:30 a.m., all funds in your accounts totaling $72,431.33 were seized and transferred to the creditor." Silence. The movers, the truck, the penthouse. It all just faded away. Ashley stared at the phone, her mouth open. Marcus was the first to speak. His voice was a choked whisper. "Seized. What are you talking about? What debt? I do not have any debts." The sound of typing again. "Sir, the legal order is for an outstanding business loan taken out 5 years ago for $50,000. The creditor has called the loan due, citing a breach of the good faith clause in your contract. With 5 years of compounded interest, the total due was, well, exactly what was in your accounts." $50,000, Marcus yelled, his voice cracking. That was a gift. That was from my father. That was a gift." "I am sorry, sir," Cynthia said, her voice like ice. The legal documents we received are very clear. It was a formal notarized loan. We had no choice but to comply. Who? Marcus whispered. Who did this? The creditor of record, sir, the bank rep said. The order was filed by the law firm of, let me see, LeBlanc and Associates on behalf of their client. Who is the client? Marcus yelled, his face turning a dark mottled red. Tell me the name. The client, sir, is a Mr. Elias Thorne. The phone dropped from Marcus's hand. It clattered onto the expensive leather console. Ashley just stared. Her face was white. Elias, she whispered. Your father. Marcus did not say anything. He just stared through the windshield, his entire body trembling. He was not just angry. He was annihilated. Marcus, Ashley said, her voice rising to a shriek. Marcus, what did he do? He stole our money. He stole our wedding gifts. That broke his trance. Marcus snatched the phone. You tell him. You tell him he cannot do this, he screamed into the receiver. Sir, the bank rep said, it is already done. Your accounts are now empty. Is there anything else I can help you with today? Marcus roared a sound of pure animal rage and threw the phone against the dashboard. It shattered the screen, going black. He was breathing like a bull. That old man, he hissed, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles were white. That bastard, he... Ashley was crying now, loud, ugly sobs. It is all gone, Marcus. The penthouse, the honeymoon, our money. It is all gone. He ruined us. He left us with nothing. Marcus hit the steering wheel. Hard. No, he growed. No, he did not leave us with nothing. He thinks he's smart. He's not. He turned to Ashley, his eyes wild. It is fine, Ash. It is fine. Stop crying. He took our cash. Who cares? We still have the house. Ashley's crying hitched. The house. Yes, Marcus said, a frantic, ugly smile spreading across his face. His house, the brownstone. He took our $70,000 fine. We'll take his $2 million. He wants to play. We will sell his precious house right out from under him. He thinks he is smart. We are smarter. The lobby of the penthouse was no longer welcoming. The polite doorman, the one who had tipped his hat to them an hour ago, was now standing with his arms crossed. The head of the moving crew, a large man with a sweaty face, was standing right in front of Marcus. Look, mister, the man said, his voice loud enough for everyone in the marble lobby to hear. I do not care about your bank problems. You owe me for 4 hours. My guys do not work for free. You pay me now, or we take all your stuff and put it in storage. And trust me, you do not want to pay those fees. Ashley was trying to hide her face, pretending to look at her phone. She was humiliated. Marcus, she hissed, pay him. Use the credit card. Marcus pulled out his wallet. His hands were shaking. He handed the man a shiny black Amex. Fine, he snapped. Just run it. The mover pulled a small reader from his belt. He swiped the card. He looked at it. He swiped it again. A red light beeped. Declined, the mover said, his voice flat. What? Ashley shrieked, her voice echoing in the lobby. That is impossible. That is a credit card, not a bank account. Try it again. I did, lady, the mover said, losing his patience. It is declined. You got another one? Marcus pulled out his own Visa. Declined. He pulled out a MasterCard. Declined. Ashley pulled out her Amex. Declined. They did not understand, but I did. My lawyers were thorough. When they filed the lien, they also filed a notice of financial distress. His credit, her credit, it was all instantly frozen. The $70,000 seizure was not just a withdrawal, it was a signal to the entire financial system. It said, these people are a risk. In the space of one morning, they had gone from a $70,000 balance to a 0 credit score. This is ridiculous, Ashley shouted at the mover. There is a mistake. There is no mistake, lady, the mover said, pointing his finger at her. You are broke. You are trying to scam me. He turned to his men. All right, boys, load it back up. It is all going to the pound. No, Marcus yelled. Wait. He was desperate. He looked at the penthouse doorman. We have a lease. You cannot just kick us out. The doorman stepped forward, his face like stone. About that, sir. Management was just contacted by your bank. Your deposit check for the lease had bounced. The lien was placed before it cleared. He pointed to the revolving door. Your lease is void. You and your wife need to leave the premises immediately. This was it. The moment of pure, beautiful collapse. They were standing in a marble lobby surrounded by boxes of brand new expensive wedding gifts. They had no money, they had no credit, and they had no home. They were officially homeless. The mover and his team started grabbing their boxes. No, wait, stop, Marcus pleaded. He turned to Ashley, his eyes wild with panic. Ash, your parents, call your parents, get their card. Ashley's face was white. I cannot, she whispered. My dad, he gave us the wedding money. He said that was it. He said we were on our own now. Marcus stared at her. The final door had just closed. The movers were taking their things. Fine, Marcus said, his voice a low animal growl. Fine. You want the stuff. Take it. Marcus, no, Ashley screamed. That's our stuff. It is just stuff, Ash, he yelled back. We will get more. We have to go, now. He grabbed her arm and dragged her out of the lobby past the doorman and onto the street. They stood on the curb in their expensive honeymoon clothes with nothing but their suitcases. The penthouse was gone. The movers were gone. Their money was gone. They just stood there on a busy Manhattan street as people walked around them. Ashley started to cry. Hard, ugly sobs. You idiot, she screamed at him, hitting his chest. You let him do this. You let that old bastard ruin us. What do we do now, Marcus? What do we do? Marcus just took it. He stared at the traffic, and then a slow, ugly smile spread on his face. The smile of a cornered animal. I told you, he hissed. It is fine. He thinks he is smart. He is not. He pointed down the street. There is a U-Haul rental place 2 blocks from here. We will rent a truck. With what money? She sobbed. Marcus reached into his pocket and pulled out a small roll of cash. Emergency money. The cash gifts from the wedding I did not put in the bank. It is about $2,000. He grabbed their suitcases. We are not done, he said. They walked the 2 blocks. They rented a U-Haul truck, the cheapest, dirtiest one on the lot. They drove it back to the penthouse and spent an hour begging the moving company to let them buy back their essential items, paying in cash. They loaded boxes of their expensive china, their silver, their new blender, into the filthy, rusted back of a U-Haul truck themselves. They were sweating. Their honeymoon tans were covered in city grime. Finally, they were done. They slammed the metal door shut. Ashley was leaning against the truck, her face a mask of rage and tears. Now what, genius? She spat. We have a truck full of junk and nowhere to go. We are going to live in this thing. Marcus climbed into the driver's seat. He looked at her. Get in, he said. Where are we going? She yelled. We are going to Brooklyn, he said. And he reached into his wallet. He pulled out a single old worn key. A house key. What is that? She asked. It is my key, he said, his voice full of triumph. My key to my dad's house, the one he never asked for back. He started the engine. The truck roared to life. He took our cash, fine. We are taking his house. He wants to play. We will sell his precious little dump and buy 3 penthouses. He put the truck in gear. They pulled out into traffic. A $10 million heir and his new bride driving a dirty U-Haul from Manhattan to Brooklyn to go squat in a house that was no longer theirs. They had no idea. The trap was set, and they were driving right into it. I was in my hotel room in New Orleans when I got the call. It was from Martha Henderson. She was terrified. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what happened exactly as she told it to me. The U-Haul truck, a big, ugly orange and white box, rumbled down my old street in Brooklyn. I should say Martha's Street. It was just after 8 p.m. They had spent the entire day fighting, first at the penthouse, then with the movers. They had been forced to rent that dirty truck themselves. They had loaded their expensive, useless wedding gifts into the back, their honeymoon clothes stained with sweat and city grime. They were tired, they were furious, and they were desperate. Marcus pulled the heavy truck up, parking it right in front of the brownstone. My brownstone. The house where he was born. He jumped out of the cab. He looked as Martha told it like a wild man. His new wife Ashley got out of the passenger side, her face a mask of pure ugly rage. This is it, she sneered, looking up at the house. This dump. This is what you have been hiding. This is our $2 million. It is our $2 million, Marcus hissed back. Now shut up and let me get in. He walked up the stone steps, the steps I had repaired myself just last spring. He walked with a swagger. He was a king finally coming to claim his castle. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his key, the key I gave him 10 years ago when he was just a boy so he could always let himself in after school. A key I never asked for back. He shoved the key into the lock, and he turned it. Nothing. It did not budge. The key slid in, but it would not turn. He jiggled it. He pulled it out and jammed it back in, harder this time. He put his shoulder into the door, trying to force it, thinking it was just stuck. "What is wrong?" Ashley yelled from the sidewalk. "What are you doing? Get the door open. I want to take a shower. I smell like a truck driver." It is stuck," Marcus yelled. He was getting frantic. He kicked the door, the solid oak door I installed with my own hands. It did not move. It did not rattle. "The old man," he growled. "He must have changed the lock." "He what?" Ashley shrieked. She marched up the steps, her high heels clicking on the stone. "He locked us out. He locked us out of our own house." "It is my house!" Marcus yelled, his voice cracking with rage and panic. He balled up his fist. He started pounding on the wood, a loud, desperate boom, boom, boom that echoed down the quiet street. My neighbors, the people who had known me for 40 years, started turning on their porch lights. "Dad!" Marcus roared, his voice breaking. "Dad, open this door. I know you are in there. Open the damn door, old man. You cannot do this." He pounded again, his whole body shaking. "Dad, I swear to God." And then the porch light clicked on. The new bright LED light that Martha's son had installed just yesterday. The sound of a brand new deadbolt sliding back. A heavy, solid clack. The door opened. But it was not me. It was not the old, defeated, embarrassed man they were expecting. It was Martha Henderson. She was wearing a pink fleece bathrobe and fuzzy slippers. Her hair was up in curlers. She was holding a mug of coffee in one hand, and she looked annoyed. She did not look scared. She looked angry. Marcus froze. His fist was still in the air, ready to pound again. He just stared. "Mrs. Henderson," he stammered. Ashley pushed past him. Her eyes were wide. She looked at Martha, then at the hallway behind her. She could see my old coat rack was gone. She could smell potpourri. "What the hell are you doing here?" Ashley snapped. Martha Henderson took a slow sip of her coffee. She is not a tall woman, but in that moment in her bathrobe she looked like a queen. "I live here," she said, her voice calm and steady. "You what?" Marcus whispered. "I live here," Martha repeated a little louder. "I am trying to watch my stories, and you are making a terrible racket, Marcus. Pounding on my door like a fool. You should be ashamed of yourself, waking up the whole neighborhood." Ashley stepped forward right into Martha's face. You are lying," Ashley hissed. "This is his house, my father-in-law's house, Elias Thorne. Now get out of our way." She put her hand on Martha's shoulder and pushed her. "Get out." Martha did not budge. She did not spill a drop of coffee. She just looked at Ashley's hand on her robe and then up at Ashley's face. And all the neighborhood kindness, all the years of gentle smiles, it was just gone. "Young lady," Martha said, her voice dropping, and I know that voice. It is the one she used when her son was in trouble. "You take your hand off me now." "Or what?" Ashley sneered. "You will call the cops. This is our house. Tell her Marcus." Marcus was just standing there, his mind completely broken. "Dad. Where is my dad? What did you do to my dad?" "Elias," Martha said. "Elias is away. He is on business, and he sold me the house last week. Now, if you do not mind, you are letting the cold air in. Good night, Marcus." She made to close the door, but Ashley was faster. She shoved her foot in the doorway. "You are a liar," she screamed. "He would never sell. Not without telling us. This is our inheritance. You stole our house." "Our house." That is what she said. Martha told me that is the moment she knew. The moment she knew that every single thing I did was right. "Get your foot out of my door," Martha said. "No," Ashley screamed. "Marcus, call the police. This old woman is trespassing. This is our house. I will not, Martha said, her voice like steel. I will not ask you again. Get off my property, or I will be the one to call the police, and I will have you arrested. Marcus finally snapped out of it. He looked at Martha, at the house, at the U-Haul truck full of his useless, expensive junk. He understood. The lock was not changed by me. It was changed by a new owner. He had been tricked. He had been in every way completely and totally outplayed. He grabbed Ashley's arm. Ash, stop, stop, let's go. No, she fought him. She is lying. Make her get out. Ashley, stop it, he roared, dragging her down the steps. She is not lying. He did it. That old bastard, he gave it away. He gave away our house. Martha Henderson stood in the doorway in her bathrobe holding her coffee. She watched them. She watched them stand on the sidewalk under the streetlight screaming at each other. She watched my son realize he had lost everything. And then she calmly closed her new door, slid her new deadbolt, and went back to watching her stories. Martha Henderson stood in her doorway in her pink bathrobe and looked at the two furious, dirty people on her new front steps. Ashley was still trying to push past her, her face a mask of disbelief. You cannot be serious, Ashley hissed. This is a joke, a sick, cruel joke. Elias would never sell this house. He did, Martha said, her voice calm. She was not afraid of this loud, pale girl. She had faced down doctors and death and real loss. This was just noise. He sold it to me last week. Sold it? Ashley let out a laugh, a high, ugly sound that echoed on the quiet street. He sold it to you with what money? Your pension, your Social Security. Do not lie to me, old woman. This house is worth $2 million. You do not have $2 million. Marcus, who had been frozen, finally spoke. He joined in the laughter. It was a desperate, panicked sound. She's right, Ash, he said, a wild look in his eyes. Mrs. Henderson, come on. This is not funny. Just tell us where my father is. Is he hiding? Is he trying to scare us? He tried to step around her into the hallway. Dad, he called out. Dad, it is not funny. We know you are in there. Martha did not move. She put her hand flat on Marcus's chest. It was a small, wrinkled hand, but it was firm. Marcus Thorne, you will not take one more step into my home, she said. Her voice was not loud, but it cut through the night air. You are trespassing. Trespassing, Ashley shrieked. We will show you trespassing. This is our house. We have a key. Your key, Martha said, does not work on my lock. She turned, walked 2 steps into her new hallway to the small table I used to keep by the door. She picked up a thick, blue, legal-looking folder. She walked back to the door. She held it out. You want to see how I bought it, she said. Go ahead, read. Marcus just stared at the folder. He was afraid to touch it. But Ashley, she snatched it from Martha's hand. She ripped it open. She was expecting, I do not know what she was expecting, a fake lease, a prank. She was not expecting a deed of gift. She was not expecting a fully executed, notarized, and city-filed legal document. Her eyes scanned the page. What is this? She whispered. This says, deed of gift, from Elias Thorne to Martha Henderson. Her eyes flew to the bottom of the page. In consideration of $1. She looked up, her face white. $1, she whispered. That is right, young lady, Martha said, taking a sip of her cold coffee. He sold it to me for $1, and my lawyer, who is much, much better than your lawyer, I imagine, filed it with the city last Tuesday. It is all 100% legal. I am the owner. This is my house, and you, she said, pointing a finger at Ashley, are on my porch, and I want you to leave. Ashley was shaking. She was reading the document again, faster this time. Her eyes were flying over the legal language. She was looking for a loophole. She was looking for a way out. And then she found it. She found the part I knew she would find. She found paragraph 7, the Thorne-Vanderbilt exclusion clause. Her breath hitched. She read it out loud, her voice a strangled gasp. This property shall not be sold, transferred, willed, or otherwise conveyed to Marcus Thorne, Marcus Vanderbilt, or Ashley Vanderbilt, in perpetuity. She stopped. She looked at Marcus. her face a mask of pure, unadulterated hatred. She did not look at Martha. She looked at her new husband. "You idiot," she hissed. Her voice was quiet now, but it was more dangerous than her screaming. "You stupid little fool." "What, Ash?" Marcus stammered. What does it mean?" "It means," she screamed, shoving the papers into his chest, "that he knew. He knew we were coming. He knew what we would do. He set a trap. And you let him. You let him do this. You just let him give our $2 million house away to the maid." "She is not a maid," Martha said, her voice sharp. "Shut up," Ashley shrieked, turning on her. You stole our house." "That was it," Marcus finally snapped. The realization that he had not just lost his money, he had lost the house. It was too much. He roared. It was not a human sound. He lunged. He shoved past Ashley, knocking her into the railing. He lunged at Martha, trying to force his way into the house. "I do not care what a piece of paper says," he yelled, his face purple. "This is my house. Get out." He was a big man. Martha was a 70-year-old woman, but she was ready. As he lunged, she did not step back. She stepped aside and she slammed the solid oak door shut in his face. It cracked against the frame with the sound of a gunshot. They heard the clack of the new deadbolt. They heard the rattling of a new security chain. Marcus was left on the porch staring at the wood. He had just assaulted an old woman. He had been locked out. He turned and hit the door with his fist. "You cannot keep us out," he roared. "I will break it down." "Go ahead," they heard Martha's voice yell from inside, clear and strong. "I am on the phone with 911 right now. I am telling them a strange man is on my porch high on drugs threatening to kill me. I am telling them he just assaulted his wife. How do you think that is going to look for you, Marcus? How do you think that is going to look for you, Ashley Vanderbilt?" They froze. Ashley was still on the steps, holding her arm where Marcus had shoved her. The neighbors' lights were all on. People were on their porches watching. They were on the phone. The sirens. They could hear sirens, faint but getting closer. This was it, the end of the line. The sirens grew louder. A blue and red light washed over the street, flashing across Marcus's face, across Ashley's tear-stained cheeks. They were frozen on the sidewalk, caught in the spotlight of their own failure. The U-Haul truck idled behind them, a big, ugly monument to their greed. Porch lights were on all up and down the street. Old Mr. Petrovich, who had lived next door for 30 years, was standing on his steps, wearing his bathrobe and holding a baseball bat. Mrs. Gambino, from across the street, was peering through her curtains. These were the people who had watched Marcus grow up. The people who had brought over casseroles when Rose got sick. They were all watching. 2 police cars pulled up, blocking the U-Haul. The officers got out their hands near their belts. They were not smiling. They saw a domestic dispute, a woman crying, a man yelling, and an old woman, Martha, standing safely behind her locked door. "What is the problem here?" the senior officer asked, his voice booming in the quiet night. Ashley immediately ran to him, playing the victim. "Officer, thank God," she cried, pointing at the house. "That woman, she stole our house. She is an imposter. She locked us out. This is my husband's house." Marcus tried to look reasonable. He walked over, his hands raised. "Officer, please," he said, trying to sound calm. "This is my father's house. My name is Marcus Thorne. I grew up here. I have a key. She changed the lock. She is trespassing. We just want her removed." The front door opened again. Martha Henderson stepped out onto the porch, holding the blue legal folder. She was perfectly calm. "Good evening, officers," she said. "My name is Martha Henderson. I am the legal owner of this property." The senior officer looked from Marcus to Ashley and then to Martha. "Ma'am, can you prove that?" "Yes, I can," Martha said. She walked down the steps, ignoring Marcus and Ashley, and handed the folder to the officer. "This is the deed of gift filed with the city last Tuesday. You will find it is all in order." The officer took the folder. He opened it under the flashing blue lights. His partner came over and looked over his shoulder, holding a flashlight. They read the first page. I can imagine their faces. They saw my name, Elias Thorne. They saw her name, Martha Henderson. And then they saw the price. "In consideration of $1, the first officer whispered. They kept reading. They were thorough. They saw the notary stamp. They saw the official filing number from the city registrar. It was perfect. It was ironclad. Then they got to paragraph 7. The officer with the flashlight read the Thorne Vanderbilt exclusion clause out loud in a low voice for his partner. They looked at each other. Then they looked at Marcus and Ashley, who were standing there waiting expectant. They looked like two spoiled children waiting for the principal to punish the teacher. The senior officer slowly, carefully folded the papers back into the blue folder. He walked over and handed it back to Martha Henderson. "Thank you, Mrs. Henderson," he said respectfully. "You can go back inside. We will handle this." He turned. He faced Marcus and Ashley. His face was no longer curious. It was hard. It was official. "Sir," he said to Marcus, "Ma'am, this paperwork is 100% legal. This woman, Mrs. Henderson, is the legal owner of this property. As of last Tuesday, this is her house." Ashley's face crumpled. "What? No, that is impossible. He is the son." "Ma'am," the officer said, cutting her off, "it does not matter if he is the president. He is not the owner. This is private property. And you," he said, pointing to both of them, "are trespassing. You have been asked to leave. You are now being ordered to leave." But, Marcus stammered. "Officer, you do not understand. That is my inheritance. She tricked him. My father, he is an old man." "Sir," the officer said, his voice like ice, "your family business is not my concern. My concern is the law, and the law says you are trespassing. Take your truck, take your things, and leave this property immediately." He put his hand on his belt. "If I have to tell you again, I will be arresting both of you." This was it, the public humiliation, the final crushing blow. Marcus just stood there, his mouth open, completely broken. All the neighbors were watching. Mr. Petrovich, who had taught Marcus how to throw a baseball, Mrs. Gambino, who used to give him cookies. They all saw me. Elias Thorne, a single father, raised that boy on this very street. They saw me carry him on my shoulders. They saw me work 2 jobs to send him to college. And now they were all watching him, a grown man, being thrown out of his own home by the police like a common criminal. His new rich white wife crying on the sidewalk next to him. He was not just homeless. He was shamed. In front of his entire past. Ashley grabbed his arm. "Marcus," she sobbed, "do something." He looked at the cop. He looked at Martha's closed door. He looked at the neighbors. He had nothing. There was nothing to do. He was completely and totally beaten. Without a word, he turned. He walked to the U-Haul truck. He got in the driver's seat. He did not even help Ashley. She had to run sobbing and pull herself up into the passenger seat. "Marcus, where are we going?" she wailed. "Where will we go?" He started the engine. The dirty truck roared to life, a terrible, ugly sound on our quiet street. "I do not know," he said, his voice dead. "A motel. I do not care. Just shut up." He put the truck in gear and drove away. Their expensive, useless wedding gifts rattled in the back. They drove off into the night with $2,000 in cash and nowhere in the world to go. While they were being humiliated on a cold, dark sidewalk in Brooklyn, I was in New Orleans, and I was stepping into the light. It was Tuesday morning, the same Tuesday morning they woke up in a state of panic. I woke up in my suite at the Ritz-Carlton. I did not put on my old work clothes. I put on a new suit. A suit that my new assistant, a sharp young woman from the fund, had custom made for me. It was a dark charcoal gray. It cost $5,000. The wool was so fine it felt like wearing nothing at all. When I looked in the mirror, I did not see Elias the carpenter. I did not see the embarrassing old man from table 23. I saw Solomon Thorne. I saw Julius Thorne. I saw Mr. Thorne. I rode the elevator down to the grand ballroom of the hotel. My team had rented it. It was not set for a wedding. It was set for a war. The room was full, not with laughing drunk guests, but with reporters, journalists, news crews. I saw the logos on their cameras. CNBC, Bloomberg, the Associated Press, Forbes, every major financial and news outlet in the South. They were here not for a local story, but because my PR team had promised them a $10 million mystery. I walked through the back entrance. My new board of directors, the lawyers, the historians, they all nodded at me. Mr. Thorne. They said, their voices full of respect. I was not an old man to be managed. I was their leader. My lead attorney, the shark from New Orleans, clapped me on the shoulder. "Are you ready, Elias?" he asked, his voice low. I thought about Marcus telling me to take the bus. I thought about Ashley, her voice dripping with scorn, saying nursing home. I thought about my brother's last words. Don't let them erase us. I am ready, I said. My new PR director stepped up to the podium. Ladies and gentlemen of the press, thank you for coming. It is my honor to introduce you to a new and powerful force for change in our community. Please welcome the founder and chairman of the Thorn Heritage Fund, Mr. Elias Thorn. I walked out from the curtain. A wall of light hit me. The sound was not laughter. It was the rapid click, click, click of dozens of cameras, a sound like 100 angry insects. I stood at the podium. I looked out at the faces. They were curious, skeptical. They saw an old black man in an expensive suit. They did not know what to think. I did not shake. I did not stammer. I looked directly into the camera at the back of the room, the one with the red light, the one that was broadcasting this live. Good morning, I said. My voice was clear. It was strong. It came from my chest, not my throat. It was the voice of a man who owned the room. My name is Elias Thorn, and for 72 years that name meant very little to the world. It was the name of a carpenter. It was the name of a father. But today that changes. I paused. I let them lean in. Today I am proud to announce the formation of the Thorn Heritage Fund. I gestured to the sign behind me where the new logo was unveiled. The fund is launching with an initial endowment of $10.2 million. A gasp went through the room. Pens scribbled on notepads. 10 million. I had their attention. This fund is not simple charity. I continued, my voice steady. It is a legacy. It is established to honor the true history of the Thorn name. I told them the story, the one the historians had found. I told them about Solomon Thorn, a freedman, a blacksmith, a man who forged thorns for a living and who built a life with his bare hands. My family's name, I said, my voice ringing with a pride I had never felt before, is not a name of shame. It is the name of a builder. It is the name of a king. My brother Julius Thorn spent his quiet, brilliant life reclaiming that legacy, and now I will spend the rest of mine protecting it. The Thorn Heritage Fund has one mission: to build an army of protectors. We will be funding full scholarships to HBCUs for the brightest young black minds we can find. We will be creating a new generation of financial lawyers, historians, and economists. We will give them the tools to build their own legacies and the armor to protect them. I looked right into that red camera. I was not talking to the reporters anymore. I was talking to him, wherever he was. We will ensure, I said, that our history is never erased, and that our name is never ever a source of shame again. The room exploded. Camera flashes were like lightning. Hands shot up in the air, reporters shouting questions. My new life had begun. The image of me, Mr. Elias Thorn, philanthropist, was flying across the wire. It was on the stock market ticker. It was on the midday news, and hundreds of miles away in a dark, cheap room, they saw it. They were in a Motel 6 somewhere off the highway in New Jersey. The U-Haul truck was parked outside, a big orange badge of their failure. The room smelled like stale smoke and desperation. They had been fighting for hours. Ashley was sitting on the lumpy bed, her face puffy from crying. Marcus was staring at the wall, a broken man. The small, grainy television in the corner was on, some boring financial news channel. And suddenly my face filled the screen. Not the old tired Elias, but Mr. Thorn, in his $5,000 suit. A graphic flashed at the bottom of the screen. Elias Thorn, the $10 million philanthropist. Ashley stopped crying. She just stared. Her mouth fell open. Marcus, she whispered, her voice a dry croak. Marcus, look. He turned his head. He saw me. He heard my voice, clear and strong, talking about Solomon Thorn, talking about $10 million. He saw the name Thorn Heritage Fund behind me. He saw the respect. He saw the power. He saw the money, his money. And he just stared. The entire world had just tilted off its axis. He had thrown away a kingdom. While they were being humiliated on a cold, dark sidewalk in Brooklyn, I was in New Orleans. And I was stepping into the light. It was Tuesday morning. The same Tuesday morning they woke up in a state of panic. I woke up in my suite at the Ritz-Carlton. I did not put on my old work clothes. I put on a new suit, a suit that my new assistant, a sharp young woman from the fund, had custom made for me. It was a dark charcoal gray. It cost $5,000. The wool was so fine it felt like wearing nothing at all. When I looked in the mirror, I did not see Elias the carpenter. I did not see the embarrassing old man from table 23. I saw Solomon Thorne. I saw Julius Thorne. I saw Mr. Thorne. I rode the elevator down to the grand ballroom of the hotel. My team had rented it. It was not set for a wedding. It was set for a war. The room was full, not with laughing drunk guests, but with reporters, journalists, news crews. I saw the logos on their cameras: CNBC, Bloomberg, the Associated Press, Forbes, every major financial and news outlet in the South. They were here not for a local story, but because my PR team had promised them a $10 million mystery. I walked through the back entrance. My new board of directors, the lawyers, the historians, they all nodded at me. "Mr. Thorne," they said, their voices full of respect. I was not an old man to be managed. I was their leader. My lead attorney, the Shark from New Orleans, clapped me on the shoulder. "Are you ready, Elias?" he asked, his voice low. I thought about Marcus telling me to take the bus. I thought about Ashley, her voice dripping with scorn, saying nursing home. I thought about my brother's last words: "Don't let them erase us." "I am ready," I said. My new PR director stepped up to the podium. "Ladies and gentlemen of the press, thank you for coming. It is my honor to introduce you to a new and powerful force for change in our community. Please welcome the founder and chairman of the Thorne Heritage Fund, Mr. Elias Thorne." I walked out from the curtain. A wall of light hit me. The sound was not laughter. It was the rapid click, click, click of dozens of cameras, a sound like 100 angry insects. I stood at the podium. I looked out at the faces. They were curious, skeptical. They saw an old black man in an expensive suit. They did not know what to think. I did not shake. I did not stammer. I looked directly into the camera at the back of the room, the one with the red light, the one that was broadcasting this live. "Good morning," I said. My voice was clear. It was strong. It came from my chest, not my throat. It was the voice of a man who owned the room. "My name is Elias Thorne, and for 72 years that name meant very little to the world. It was the name of a carpenter. It was the name of a father. But today that changes." I paused. I let them lean in. "Today I am proud to announce the formation of the Thorne Heritage Fund." I gestured to the sign behind me where the new logo was unveiled. "The fund is launching with an initial endowment of $10.2 million. A gasp went through the room. Pens scribbled on notepads. 10 million. I had their attention. "This fund is not simple charity," I continued, my voice steady. "It is a legacy. It is established to honor the true history of the Thorne name." I told them the story, the one the historians had found. I told them about Solomon Thorne, a freedman, a blacksmith, a man who forged thorns for a living and who built a life with his bare hands. "My family's name," I said, my voice ringing with a pride I had never felt before, "is not a name of shame. It is the name of a builder. It is the name of a king." My brother Julius Thorne spent his quiet, brilliant life reclaiming that legacy. And now I will spend the rest of mine protecting it. The Thorne Heritage Fund has one mission: to build an army of protectors. We will be funding full scholarships to HBCUs for the brightest young black minds we can find. We will be creating a new generation of financial lawyers, historians, and economists. We will give them the tools to build their own legacies and the armor to protect them. I looked right into that red camera. I was not talking to the reporters anymore. I was talking to him, wherever he was. "We will ensure," I said, "that our history is never erased, and that our name is never ever a source of shame again." The room exploded. Camera flashes were like lightning. Hands shot up in the air, reporters shouting questions. My new life had begun. The image of me, Mr. Elias Thorne, philanthropist, was flying across the wire. It was on the stock market ticker. It was on the midday news. And hundreds of miles away, in a dark, cheap room, they saw it. They were in a Motel 6 somewhere off the highway in New Jersey. The U-Haul truck was parked outside, a big orange badge of their failure. The room smelled like stale smoke and desperation. They had been fighting for hours. Ashley was sitting on the lumpy bed, her face puffy from crying. Marcus was staring at the wall, a broken man. The small, grainy television in the corner was on, some boring financial news channel. And suddenly my face filled the screen. Not the old tired Elias, but Mr. Thorne in his $5,000 suit. A graphic flashed at the bottom of the screen. Elias Thorne, the $10 million philanthropist. Ashley stopped crying. She just stared. Her mouth fell open. "Marcus," she whispered, her voice a dry croak. "Marcus, look." He turned his head. He saw me. He heard my voice clear and strong, talking about Solomon Thorne, talking about $10 million. He saw the name Thorne Heritage Fund behind me. He saw the respect. He saw the power. He saw the money. His money. And he just stared. The entire world had just tilted off its axis. He had thrown away a kingdom. I am not at the Motel 6. I am not in a dirty U-Haul. I am at a fundraising gala for the New Orleans Children's Hospital. I am wearing my $5,000 suit. I am Mr. Thorne, the $10 million philanthropist. Senators are shaking my hand. The mayor has clapped me on the back. They are all welcoming me to the city, welcoming my money, welcoming my new power. I am holding a small glass of sparkling water. I am listening to a city councilwoman tell me about a zoning initiative. My new life is different. It is full of these polite, quiet conversations where everyone wants something, but no one just comes out and says it. It is a game I am learning to play. My personal phone vibrates in my pocket. Not the new business phone, my old personal flip phone, which I keep for one reason. I look at my lead lawyer who is standing beside me schmoozing with a judge. I nod to him. He nods back. He knows. I excuse myself from the councilwoman. "A personal matter," I say. She understands, of course. I walk through a set of tall French doors out onto a balcony overlooking a courtyard. The music from the gala is softer here. I flip open the phone. The number is unknown. Of course it is. They are in a roach-infested motel, probably using the greasy phone on the nightstand. I press the talk button, and I motion to my lawyer who has followed me out. He stands a few feet away discreetly. He taps the screen of his own phone. He is recording. I do not say anything. I just wait. "Dad." The voice is not the confident, booming voice from the wedding. It is a raw, choked, furious shriek. It is the sound of a cornered animal. "Dad." "Marcus," I say. My voice is perfectly calm. I take a sip of my water. "You," he screams, and I can hear Ashley in the background yelling, tell him, you bastard, you, $10 million, $10 million. I can picture him. He is in that cheap room. He is probably clutching the phone, his face red, his whole body shaking. He is not calling to apologize. He is calling to demand. "I saw you," he yells. "On the TV. The Thorne Fund. You tricked me." Tricked. That was Uncle Julius's money. That's my money. That's my inheritance. My inheritance. The entitlement of it after everything, after the speech, after the shame. It is breathtaking. "You have to give it to me, Dad," he pleads, his voice cracking. You have to give me half $5 million. That's only fair. I'm your son." I look out at the beautiful, peaceful courtyard. The fountain is lit with soft golden light. I listen to my son, my 40-year-old son, throwing a tantrum like a child. "Marcus," I say, and my voice is quiet, cold. "I do not owe you anything." The line goes silent. I think for a moment he has hung up, but I can hear him breathing, a wet, gasping sound. "What?" he whispers. I said, "I repeat, I do not owe you a thing. You made your choice. You made it very clear at your wedding." The wedding," he stammers, confused. What does the wedding have to do with anything that was just words?" "This is money, Dad. This is $10 million. This isn't a joke." "It was not words, Marcus," I say. "It was a choice. You stood in front of 200 people and you told them you were ashamed of my name. You told them you were ashamed to be my son. You chose to be a Vanderbilt. Well, go ask your new father, Mr. Vanderbilt, for money." "No," he roars. "You cannot do this to me. I am your son. I am your blood. That is my right." "It is not your right," I say. "Julius's will was very specific. It is my legacy, to be used as I see fit, and I see fit to give it to young men and women who are proud to be black, who are proud of their history, not ashamed of it. You... He is sputtering. Now he has no words left. He is just pure, raw animal greed. I will sue you. I will tell everyone I will. You will do nothing, I cut him off. Because you have nothing. You have no money, Marcus. You have no credit. You have no home. You have no name. You are for the first of your life exactly what you have made yourself. You are nothing. Dad, he sobs. It is a desperate, pathetic sound. Please, please, do not do this. She made me Ashley. It was her idea, all of it. Please, Dad, I am busy, Marcus, I say. I am no longer looking at the courtyard. I am looking at my lawyer. He nods. He has it all. I am at a fundraising dinner. I have important people to talk to. Wait, he screams. If you have any further questions, I say, my voice like a sheet of ice. You can contact the legal department of the Thorn Heritage Fund. Their number is on the website. I am sure you can find it. Do not ever call this number again. I press the end button. I flip the phone shut. The clack of the plastic closing is the loudest sound in the courtyard. It is the sound of the final door slamming, the final lock turning. I put the phone in my pocket. My lawyer stops the recording. We got it all, Elias, he says, a small, grim smile on his face. Breach of trust, verbal assault, coercion. He just gave us everything we need to file a restraining order if it comes to that. Good, I say. I straighten my $5,000 suit. I take a deep breath of the warm, humid New Orleans air. It smells like jasmine and power. I can picture the motel room. I can see him staring at the dead phone. He is broken. He is a beaten man. But then, I see her. Ashley. She is not crying anymore. Her face is not full of tears. It is full of calculation. Her mind is racing. He hung up, Marcus whispers, staring at the phone. He hung up on me. Shut up, Marcus, Ashley says. Her voice is not hysterical anymore. It is sharp. Stop crying. Did you hear what he said? He said no. He did not say no. She snaps. He just hung up. He is in New Orleans. He is there with the money. He thinks he can hide from us. She walks over to the U-Haul truck keys sitting on the wet-stained carpet. She picks them up. He thinks he is smart. He is just an old man. Marcus looks at her confused. Ash, what are we doing? She looks at him, her eyes bright like a wolf. What are we doing? We are going to New Orleans, you idiot. If he will not give us our money, we will go down there and we will take it. I did not know it at the time, but the scene in that Motel 6 was not the end. It was the beginning of their next desperate, stupid plan. Marcus was broken. He was sitting on the floor, head in his hands, staring at the dead phone. He was beaten. But Ashley was not. She stood up. Her eyes were dry. The tears were gone, replaced by a hard, bright, greedy light. Get up, Marcus, she said. Her voice was not the voice of a victim. It was the voice of a general. What? He mumbled from the floor. It is over, Ash. He hung up. He said no. He did not say no, she snapped, grabbing her purse. He just hung up. He is there, in New Orleans, sitting on our money. He thinks he can hide from us. He thinks he is smart. He is just a stupid, senile old man. Marcus looked up confused. What are we doing? What are we doing? She repeated, disgusted. We are going to New Orleans, right now. With what? Marcus yelled, standing up. Are you crazy? We have no money. We have no cards. We have a broken U-Haul truck and about $800 left. We have this, Ashley said. She walked over to his suitcase. She unzipped it. She pulled out the black velvet box, the one her parents had given him at the wedding. She opened it. Inside, the Rolex watch gleamed. My parents gave this to us, Marcus, to Marcus Vanderbilt. It is our last asset. We will sell it. Sell your parents' gift? Marcus stammered. Even he was shocked. It is just a watch, Marcus, she shrieked. Are you stupid? That watch is worth $20,000? That is $20,000 to buy plane tickets to hire a lawyer in New Orleans, a real lawyer. One who will fight that old bastard and get us our millions." She did not wait for his answer. She grabbed the watch box, grabbed her purse, and stormed out of the motel room. She found the nearest pawn shop. 2 hours later she came back. She did not have $20,000. The pawnbroker, seeing her desperation, gave her $5,000 in cash. "It is enough," she said, her eyes bright and feverish. "It is enough to get us there." They abandoned the U-Haul truck right there in the motel parking lot. They left their wedding gifts, the china, the blender, the silver. They left it all to be towed away. They took their suitcases and $5,000 in cash, and they took a cab to the airport. They bought 2 one-way last-minute tickets to New Orleans. They were not first class. They were in the very last row next to the bathroom. The flight was 8 hours of pure misery. Ashley was a machine. She was on the plane's spotty Wi-Fi searching for lawyers in New Orleans. "Contested wills," she typed, "challenging a guardian," proving incompetence. Marcus just sat there. He was silent. He was staring out the window, but he was not seeing the clouds. He was seeing everything. He was seeing the house in Brooklyn. He was seeing Mrs. Henderson's face. He was hearing the police officer's voice. Trespassing. He was hearing his own voice in the ballroom, full of pride. "I am ashamed to be his son." And then he remembered my voice. A long, long time ago. We were in my workshop. He was a teenager. He was complaining about some girl who did not like him, and I, covered in sawdust, had stopped sanding a piece of wood. I had looked at him. "Do not ever marry someone who only loves the man you are going to be, Marcus," I told him. "Marry someone who loves the man you are right now standing in the sawdust." He looked at Ashley. Her face was ugly in the dim cabin light. She was not the beautiful bride from the wedding. She was a stranger. A greedy, cold, desperate stranger muttering about our millions. He realized, sitting in that cramped, smelly seat, that Ashley had never loved him. She had loved his inheritance. She had loved the penthouse. She had loved the clean slate. And now that it was all gone, she did not even look at him. She was just looking at her phone. She was looking at the money. They landed in New Orleans. They were dirty, they were exhausted, and they were desperate. They took a cab. "Where to?" the driver asked. Ashley gave him the address from the press conference, the address of the Thorn Heritage Fund. The cab pulled up in front of one of Julius's buildings, the one I had turned into my headquarters. It was beautiful now. The brick was clean. The windows were new. A polished brass sign by the door read, "The Thorn Heritage Fund." "This is it," Ashley whispered, her eyes wide. He spent our money on this." They got out. They did not have a plan. They just had rage and greed. Marcus was a zombie following her. Ashley was a predator who had scented blood. She walked up the steps. She did not knock. She did not look for a buzzer. She just grabbed the heavy brass handle and shoved the door open. They burst into the lobby, a beautiful, quiet lobby with a polite young receptionist sitting at a desk. Ashley stormed right past her. "Where is he?" she yelled, her voice echoing in the marble hall. "Where is Elias Thorne?" The receptionist stood up, shocked. "Ma'am, you cannot just... This is a private office." "The hell it is," Ashley screamed. "This is my office. This is my money. Now where is he?" And I was in a meeting, in the glass-walled conference room at the end of the hall. I was meeting with the first 3 recipients of the Thorne Scholarship, 3 bright, brilliant young black students. I was telling them the story of Solomon Thorne. And I heard it. The screaming. I looked up. Through the glass I saw them. Dirty, sweaty, their eyes wild. They looked like creatures from another world. They had found me. The final confrontation. It had finally arrived. I was in the main conference room of the fund. It was not an office. It was a cathedral. It was one of Julius's old buildings, one I had poured money into restoring the old brick and the tall arched windows. I was at the head of a long, polished mahogany table. With me were my board of directors, my lawyers, and 3 other people, 3 young, bright-eyed students, the first recipients of the Thorne Heritage Fund Scholarship. I was in the middle of a sentence. I was telling them the story. My great-grandfather, I was saying, was a blacksmith, a freedman named Solomon Thorne. I pointed to the large new portrait that dominated the far wall, a painting I had commissioned showing a strong, proud black man at an anvil firelight on his face. "He was a king," I told them. "He built his life with his hands, and they called him Thorne because..." The doors crashed open. They did not just open. They slammed against the interior walls with a sound like a thunderclap. My new polite receptionist stumbled into the room, her face white with panic. "Mr. Thorne," she gasped. "Mr. Thorne, I am so sorry I tried to stop them. They just pushed past me." And then they were there. They stood in the doorway framed by the light of the lobby. They looked ruined. They were not the beautiful, laughing couple from the wedding. They were dirty, their expensive clothes wrinkled and stained from travel. Their hair was matted, their eyes were wild. They looked like two starving wolves who had just found the feast. "Dad!" As Marcus's voice was a raw, broken shriek. It echoed in the high-ceilinged room. The three students at the table gasped. My lawyers started to stand up. I held up a hand, calmly. "It is all right," I said. "Let them in. I have been expecting them." Ashley shoved Marcus forward hard. "Go on," she hissed, her voice a loud, ugly whisper that carried across the room. "Do it. Say what we practiced. Do it." Marcus stumbled forward. He looked at me, at my new suit. He looked at the long, polished table. He looked at the lawyers, at the portrait of Solomon. His mind could not process it. He was not seeing a fund. He was not seeing a legacy. He was just seeing money. His money. He fell. He literally fell to his knees right there on the expensive hand-woven rug. It was theater. And it was the worst performance I had ever seen. "Dad," he choked out, his voice wet. "Dad, it is me. It is Marcus." He put his head in his hands and he began to sob. Loud, gulping, fake sobs. "Dad, I am so sorry." He wept, the words muffled by his hands. "I am so sorry. I was a fool. I was wrong." He looked up at me, his eyes full of tears that he had clearly worked up in the taxi. Ashley was behind him, nodding, her hands clasped, urging him on. I just wanted you to be proud of me," he cried. "That is all I ever wanted. The wedding, that stupid speech. I was drunk, Dad. I was so stupid. And Ashley, she pushed me," he suddenly wailed, pointing back at his wife. "It was her. It was all her idea. The name, the speech. She made me do it. Please, Dad, please. You have to forgive me. I am your son. I am your blood. Please." The room was dead silent. The three students looked horrified. My lawyer, the shark from New Orleans, just watched, his face like stone. I let the silence hang in the air. I let my son kneel. I let him grovel. I let his fake sobs echo in the room that my brother had built. Then slowly, I pushed my heavy leather chair back. It made a quiet, expensive shush on the floor. I stood up. I was not the man he was talking to. I was not Dad. "I am not your dad," I said. Marcus's sobs hitched. He stopped, his mouth half open. He looked up, his face a mask of confusion. What did you say?" I said. I repeated, my voice clear and cold, and it did not tremble. "I am not your dad." I walked around the end of the table. I stood over him. He was still on his knees. He looked small. "Your dad," I said, "was a poor old carpenter from Brooklyn, an embarrassing old man in a cheap suit, the man you were ashamed of, the man you told 200 people you hated being the son of." His face went white. The fake tears were gone. "That man," I said, "is gone. You and your wife. You killed him. You erased him right at that wedding. You got your clean slate." I gestured to my suit, to the room, to the people staring at him. "The man standing in front of you," I said, my voice rising, filling the room, "is Mr. Elias Thorne. I am the chairman of the Thorne Heritage Fund." I turned and I pointed. I pointed past him, past his stunned, greedy wife. I pointed to the portrait on the wall, the blacksmith, Solomon. "And this entire fund," I declared, "this $10 million legacy, it belongs to him. It belongs to the name Thorne. It belongs to people who are proud of that name. It belongs to these young students who will build a future worthy of that name." I looked back down at my son. "You stood in that ballroom and you spat on that name. You gave it away. You chose to be a Vanderbilt." I leaned in just a little. "You gave up your right." Marcus's face crumpled. It was not fake this time. It was real, raw horror. He finally understood. He had not just lost money. He had been disinherited. He had been replaced. Ashley saw it. She saw his face. She knew in that single crushing instant that the act had failed. The apology was useless. The money was gone. Her face, which had been twisted into a mask of fake, hopeful sympathy, changed. It contorted. The real Ashley finally came out. She lunged forward, but not at me. She lunged at Marcus, who was still on the floor. "You idiot!" she shrieked, her voice a raw, ugly sound. "You failed. You could not even apologize, right? You... She turned her rage on me. "You!" she screamed, her finger pointing at my face. "You cannot do this. You thief. That is our money. You monster!" Ashley's voice was not a yell. It was a shredded animal shriek. The mask of the beautiful, high-class bride was gone. The mask of the crying, wronged victim was gone. This was the real her, a rabid creature cornered with nothing left to lose. She lunged, not at me, but at the long, polished mahogany table. She swept her arm across it, sending the 3 students' notepads, their glasses of water, their laptops crashing to the floor. "You did this!" she screamed, her face purple spit flying from her mouth. "You monster! You think this is funny! You think this is a game!" Marcus was still on the floor, a broken, weeping mess. But Ashley was pure fire. My 2 new security guards, who I hired for exactly this reason, stepped forward. They grabbed her arms. "Get your hands off me!" she shrieked, struggling against them. She was strong, her rage giving her a terrible, frantic strength. "You cannot do this. He owes us. You owe us," she screamed, her eyes locked on me. "After everything we have been through, after all the humiliation, you sat there on your $10 million and you let us suffer, you let us be humiliated. You have to share. You owe us. You owe us." The same words from the penthouse, the same entitlement, the same bottomless greedy pit that Julius had warned me about. I did not raise my voice. I did not move. I just stood there in my $5,000 suit and I looked at her. I let her scream. I let her fight. I let everyone in that room, my new board, my new students, see exactly who she was. I let the poison come all the way out. When her screaming finally died down into a series of ugly, gasping sobs, the room was silent again. The only sound was her breathing and Marcus crying on the floor. I looked past her. I looked at my lead lawyer, the shark. He had not moved. He was just watching, waiting. I gave him a small, slow, deliberate nod. He nodded back. He reached into his elegant leather briefcase. He pulled out a single thin file folder. It was not a will. It was not a legal threat. He walked across the room, his expensive shoes silent on the rug. He did not hand it to me. He walked right up to Ashley, who was still being held by the guards. He held the folder out to her. "What?" She spat, her eyes red. "What is that? More fake papers, more of your tricks." "No, Mrs. Vanderbilt," my lawyer said, his voice perfectly dangerously polite. "These are not tricks. These are receipts." She was breathing too hard to take it. He opened the folder for her. He held it up so she could see. What is this?" she whispered, her eyes trying to focus. This is an invoice. La Fantaisie Ballroom. Floral arrangements. Catering. What is this?" I decided it was time for me to speak. I walked forward, stopping just a few feet from her. I was not her dad. I was Mr. Thorne. And this was a business meeting. "That," I said, my voice calm and clear, "is an invoice. It is the final itemized bill for your $50,000 wedding." She stared at me, her mind completely unable to put the pieces together. My wedding, what are you... "The wedding you had," I continued, "at the hotel, the one where you laughed at me, the one where my son, your husband, told 200 people he was ashamed of my name." I pointed to the papers. $50,000. For the flowers you did not want me to see. For the food I was not allowed to eat. For the champagne you drank while you toasted your true family. I do not understand," she stammered. "Let me make it simple for you," I said. "You asked what I did with your money, the $72,000 I seized from your bank account." I pointed to the invoice again. $50,000 of it went to pay that, the bill for your party, the party you used to publicly humiliate me. The color drained from her face. I mean all of it. She turned into a ghost. She finally understood. It was not just that I had the money. It was that I had used her own greed as the weapon. You paid for the wedding, she whispered. No, I said. You did. With the inheritance money you thought you were going to steal, you spent $50,000 to publicly disown me, and I simply forwarded you the bill. I smiled, a small, cold smile. The first one I had allowed myself. You were right, Ashley. I did owe you. I owed you for the party. So I paid your bill. We are even. You have already had your share. She just stared. Her mouth was open. There were no more words, no more screams, no more demands. I had taken her rage, her greed, her cruelty, and I had handed her a receipt for it. There is no comeback for that. There is nothing left to say. She was completely, totally, and finally beaten. She understood in that one crushing moment that she was not dealing with a stupid old man. She was dealing with Julius Thorne's brother. She looked at the invoice, then she looked at me. Her eyes were dead. She had nothing. Marcus was silent. He had finally stopped crying. He was just kneeling on the floor, a hollow, empty shell of a man. I looked at them, the two beautiful, greedy children, now just wreckage. My lawyers were watching. The students were watching. My work here was done. I turned to my new head of security, a large, calm man who had been waiting by the door. Frank, I said. My voice was loud. It was the voice of a chairman. Please escort Mr. Vanderbilt and his wife out of my building. Frank nodded. He and the other guard grabbed them. Not gently. No, Ashley whispered. It was not a scream. It was a plea. Please, please, you cannot. Get them out, I said, turning my back. I walked back to the head of the table. You cannot do this, she shrieked, her voice coming back. You bastard, you will hear from our lawyers. I look forward to it, my lawyer called after her, a cheerful smile on his face. They dragged them. They literally dragged a screaming Ashley and a stumbling zombie like Marcus out of my conference room, across my new lobby, and out onto the street. The heavy glass doors of the fund closed the thud final. I stood at the head of the table. The room was silent except for the overturned laptops and the spilled water. I looked at the three students who were staring at me, their eyes wide. I calmly straightened my tie. I looked at the portrait of Solomon Thorne. Now, I said, my voice perfectly steady. As I was saying, my great-grandfather was a king. The heavy glass doors of the Thorne Heritage Fund building clicked shut. The sound was soft, expensive, and final. It was the sound of a vault being sealed. Marcus and Ashley stood on the hot, sunny New Orleans sidewalk. They had been physically escorted out, the security guards' hands on their arms, and then released onto the street like two pieces of trash. Tourists walked around them, laughing, sipping colorful drinks. Marcus just stood there. He was not crying anymore. He was not anything. He was a hollow shell. He stared at the polished brass sign next to the door. The Thorne Heritage Fund. He was staring at the name. His name. The name he had thrown away. His mind was stuck in a loop, replaying the last 30 minutes. The invoice. The $50,000. The look on my face. You have already had your share. Ashley was silent. She was breathing hard, her chest heaving, but she was not screaming. She was not crying. The rage had burned out, leaving something cold and hard in its place. She was calculating. She was running the final numbers. The penthouse was gone. The money was gone. The credit was gone. The house was gone. And now the inheritance, the entire $10 million dream. It was not just locked away. It was being given away to other people. It was over. She turned her head, slowly. She looked at her new husband. She was not looking at the handsome, confident man from the wedding. She was looking at this. A dirty, broken, trembling man with tears and sweat on his face. A man who was kneeling on the floor begging just 5 minutes ago. A man who had just been publicly and completely annihilated. She looked at him with a kind of cold, clear, profound disgust. You knelt, she whispered. Her voice was not loud. It was full of contempt. Marcus did not move. He just stared at the sign. He paid for the wedding. He mumbled, his voice thick. He took our money, and he paid for the wedding. Shut up, she hissed. Just shut up. She looked up and down the street. She was not looking for help. She was looking for an escape. You just knelt, she said again. You begged. You whined. You pointed at me. You told him I made you do it. You are so weak. He finally turned to look at her, his eyes empty, confused. Ash, what are we going to do? She laughed. It was a single sharp, ugly sound. We. You think there is a we? She took a step back from him. I did not marry this, she said, waving her hand at him. I did not sign up to be poor. I did not sign up to live in a Motel 6. I did not sign up to be married to a... Nothing. Ashley, please, he whispered. We can fight this. We can get a lawyer like you said. With what, Marcus? She snapped. With your good looks. With your charming personality. We have nothing. That $5,000 is almost gone. You have no job. You have no house. You have no inheritance. You are broke. He had no answer. I was marrying Marcus Vanderbilt. She continued, her voice like ice. The heir, the man who was going to have a penthouse, the man who was going to be someone. She looked him up and down from his dirty shoes to his sweaty hair. I was not marrying you. I was not marrying a thorn. And there it was. The final irony. The final cruel twist. You know what? She said, a small cruel smile playing on her lips. You know what is really funny? You are him. You are just like him. Marcus just stared at her. What? Your father, she sneered. The old embarrassing man you were so ashamed of. You are exactly like him. A failure. A poor, broke, stupid failure. At least he has money now. You do not even have a name. She pulled out her phone, the phone that still had a half-dead battery. She opened the Uber app. She had just enough cash left on her prepaid debit card. Marcus watched her, his mind slowly catching up. Ash, what are you doing? Who are you calling? I am calling a taxi, she said, not looking at him. I am going to the airport, and then I am going home, to my real family, to my father who actually has money. But what about me? He whispered. His voice was the voice of a little boy. Ash, where are we going? She laughed that cold laugh again. There is no we, Marcus, I told you. A black car pulled up to the curb. She grabbed her suitcase. She did not even look at him. She just started to walk away. Ashley, wait, he cried, stumbling after her. You cannot just leave me. I am your husband. She stopped. She turned halfway into the car. She looked at him. I am going to have my father's lawyers annul the marriage, she said, her voice bored. Based on fraud. You told me you were an heir. You are a pauper. You are nothing. Goodbye, Marcus. She got in the car. The door slammed shut. He stood there on the curb as the car pulled away, splashing through a puddle of gutter water onto his dirty pants. She was gone. His wife was gone. His money was gone. His father was gone. His home was gone. He was completely and totally alone. On a street he did not know, in a city he did not know, He reached into his pocket. He pulled out the crumpled wad of cash, what was left from the pawned Rolex, maybe $200. He stood there as the sounds of the city rushed back in, the music from a nearby bar, the chatter of the tourists. He had no name, he had no family, he had no future. He was just as I had told him, nothing. And he had done it all, every last bit, to himself. 1 year later, I am not in New Orleans, I am not in a 5-star hotel, I am back in Brooklyn. But I am not here for a funeral, I am here for a celebration. I am sitting in a folding chair on a bright green lawn under a hot May sun. I am wearing my suit, the good one. But it is not a suit of armor anymore. It is just a suit. I am surrounded by hundreds of proud, happy families. I am at the Brooklyn Law School graduation ceremony. They are calling the names. Johnson, Lee, Rodriguez. And then I hear it. Maya Henderson. I stand up. Everyone around me stands up. And I watch as Martha Henderson's daughter, a brilliant, sharp, beautiful young woman, walks across the stage. I watch as the dean hands her a diploma. and I watch as she looks out into the crowd, her eyes finding mine. She smiles, and I smile back. Maya Henderson is the first. She is the first graduate of the Thorn Heritage Fund Scholarship Program. A year ago, she was working 2 jobs as a waitress, trying to save enough money to even think about law school. Now she is a lawyer, graduating with honors, with 0 debt. She is the first of my new army, the first of the protectors. After the ceremony, Martha Henderson pushes through the crowd. She is not the nervous, frightened woman from that night. She is glowing. She throws her arms around me right there on the lawn. "Elias," she cries, her voice thick. "You did this. You... God bless you, Elias." "No, Martha," I say, patting her back. "She did this. Solomon did this. Julius did this. I just paid the bill." I walk with them back to the house. My house. Or the house that used to be mine. It looks different. It looks happy. The old peeling paint is gone. Martha, with some of the money I loaned her for repairs, has had the whole brownstone painted a cheerful, warm yellow. The sagging porch is fixed. And the garden... I stop on the sidewalk. Rose's garden. It is not the patch of weeds I left behind. It is alive. Martha has been working. There are roses, dozens of them, red and pink and yellow. My wife's favorite flowers, blooming in the sun. Martha sees me looking. Rose always did love her roses. She says, her voice soft. I thought she would like it. I cannot speak. I just nod. This is not a fortress anymore. It is just a home. I am not the same man I was. I am 73 now. I am not the angry, vengeful man from the hotel room. I am not the lost, grieving father. I am Elias. I am Mr. Thorn. I am the chairman of the fund. Yes, the fund is thriving. We have 10 more students starting in the fall. We have lawyers. We have historians. Julius's old crumbling house in the Treme. It is not crumbling anymore. I used the fund's money, and I restored it, every piece of it. It is not a private home. It is now the Thorn Museum of Black Craftsmanship. It is a community center. It is a place where young kids come to learn about Solomon Thorn, the blacksmith. It is a place where his name is spoken with pride every single day. I have established order. I have taken the poison of my son's betrayal and I have turned it into medicine for my community. I have taken the shame he tried to put on me and I have turned it into pride. I spend most of my time in New Orleans running the fund, but I come back to Brooklyn. I come back to sit on Martha's porch in the house I was born in. We drink sweet tea and we talk about the old days. We talk about Rose. It is peaceful. I have found peace. But as I sit there on that porch watching the kids on my old street ride their bikes, there is still one question. One last loose thread in the back of my mind. I wonder where he is. Marcus, my son. After Ashley left him on that sidewalk, he vanished. He did not call again. He did not sue. He just disappeared. For a whole year there has been nothing. Just silence. I do not know if he is alive or dead. I do not know if he is in jail or on the streets. I tell myself I do not care. I tell myself he is no longer my son. But sometimes in the quiet late at night, I wonder. 2 more years pass. I am 75 years old. The anger I felt in that hotel room, the cold revenge I felt at that wedding, it is gone. It has been replaced. Not with softness, but with purpose. My life is no longer about them. It is about this. I am in my office in New Orleans, the headquarters of the Thorn Heritage Fund. The walls are covered with pictures, not of me, but of the students we have sent to college, the lawyers, the historians, the army of protectors that Julius would have been proud of. My days are full. I run the board meetings. I review the applications. I am not Elias anymore. I am Mr. Thorn. And that name carries a heavy good weight. The museum, Julius's old house, is the most popular community center in the Treme. Children go there to learn, not just history, but craft. We opened a small workshop in the back teaching kids basic carpentry, basic metalwork. We teach them the legacy of Solomon Thorn. I am at peace. I sit at my large mahogany desk. The desk that once felt like a weapon now just feels like my desk. My assistant, a sharp young woman, one of our first graduates, brings in the afternoon mail. It is a stack of formal letters. Donation requests, bank statements for the fund, thank you letters from students. But in the middle of the stack there is something small, something personal. It is a postcard, flimsy and cheap, the kind you buy at a gas station. I pick it up. The front is a picture, not a beach or a fancy building. It is a picture of a single wooden chair, an armchair. It is beautifully made, simple, strong. It looks like something I would make. I am confused. I turn it over. The postmark is from a small mountain town in Colorado, a place I have never heard of. There is no return address. And then I see the handwriting. My breath catches in my throat. I have not seen that handwriting in 3 years, not since he signed the wedding guest book. Mr. and Mrs. Vanderbilt. But this is the handwriting I taught him, the way he makes his M, the way he crosses his T. It is Marcus. I had thought he was dead. After Ashley left him, he just vanished. My investigators could not find him. He had dropped off the face of the earth. I had accepted it. I had assumed the worst. But here he is. I read the message. It is not long. It is not an apology. It is not a demand. It is just 2 lines, written in that familiar messy script. Dad, it says, I am building something with my own hands. For the first time in my life. That is all. I look at the words. I am building something with my own hands. I look at the picture on the front. The chair. The simple, strong wooden chair. He did not send me a picture of a car, or a house, or a new rich wife. He sent me a picture of his work. He is not Vanderbilt. He is not a Vanderbilt heir. He is not a visionary selling t-shirts. He is a carpenter. He is working with his hands, just like I did, just like Solomon did. He is not asking for money. He is not asking for forgiveness. He is not begging to be let into the fund. He is just working. He is building. He finally, after all this time, after destroying everything, he is finally a thorn. He understands. He understands what the name really means. It is not the $10 million. It is the work. It is the dignity of building something real. I feel not sadness, not even joy, but peace. A deep, quiet, final peace. The war is over. The last ghost is laid to rest. He is not my son anymore, not in the way he was. But he is Solomon's grandson, and he is finally building. I slowly put the postcard down. I look at the pictures on my desk. There is one of Rose smiling in her garden. There is one of Julius looking angry and smart. And now I have the portrait of Solomon the blacksmith on my wall. I take the postcard. I do not throw it away. I do not hide it. I slide it gently under the corner of my desk blotter, right next to the picture of Rose, my legacy, the real legacy, the legacy of hard work, the legacy of self-respect, the legacy of Solomon Thorne. It is safe, finally and completely safe. Dignity is not a gift given by others. It is a fortress you build within yourself. People may chip at the walls, they may scorn the name on the gate, but they can never seize the structure unless you hand them the keys. True wealth is not the applause you receive in a crowded room, but the peace you feel when you are alone. Never let those who are ashamed of your history write your future. A name only has the power you choose to give it. Dignity is not a gift given by others. It is a fortress you build within yourself. People may chip at the walls, they may scorn the name on the gate, but they can never seize the structure unless you hand them the keys. True wealth is not the applause you receive in a crowded room, but the peace you feel when you are alone. Never let those who are ashamed of your history write your future. A name only has the power you choose to give it. What did you think of Elias's final decision? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. If you believe that true strength comes from dignity, please hit like and subscribe so I can keep bringing you stories just like this one. Your support means everything.